The Serpent's Gambit opening quote, "In the game of power, the most dangerous pawns are those who believe they are kings." Sofia Alvarez, Resistance Dispatches, 2043 news article. Headline: Khan's Khanate, an empire rising and a shadow stretching westward. Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, December 12, 2042. Genghis Khan, the resurrected Mongol warlord, has solidified his iron grip over vast swaths of Asia, establishing a resurgent empire now feared as the Khanate. Blending ancient military tactics with futuristic technology salvaged from the wreckage of the Phoenix Initiative, Khan has mastered control over the ley-line network to consolidate his rule. His forces, composed of cybernetically enhanced cavalry, Tesla drones, and ley-line disruptor artillery, have swept across the steppes and deserts of Asia with unmatched speed and precision. Global leaders are increasingly alarmed by the Khanate's rapid expansion. Reports indicate Khan's forces are massing on the borders of Europe and the Middle East, while whispers of diplomatic overtures to fractured Initiative loyalists stoke fears of an unprecedented alliance. What Khan promises his followers is stability and prosperity. What he delivers is domination, Sofia Alvarez, a resistance strategist, said in a recent briefing. Take Lebanon, for instance. Once plagued by infighting and poverty, it now thrives under Khan's rule. The markets are full, the streets are clean, and the ley lines hum with stability. But it's a gilded cage. Speak a word against his regime, and you're never heard from again. This is not just a military campaign, it's a march to reshape the world in his image, and those who stand in his path will not survive. Intro Extra. Excerpt from Resistance Intelligence Report. Subject: Genghis Khan's Khanate. Analysis of Objectives and Tactics. Date: December 15, 2042. Classification: High Priority. Key Observations: Ley-line Dominance. Khan has demonstrated an unparalleled ability to stabilize ley-line nodes, weaponizing their energy for devastating effects. In Kashgar, an entire resistance garrison was wiped out when Khan's disruptors overloaded the local ley line, triggering an energy surge that reduced the fortress to molten ruins. Survivors reported seeing the sky crackle with unnatural lightning, the ground shaking as though the earth itself had turned against them. The aftermath left a scorched crater where the stronghold once stood, a chilling demonstration of the Khanate's power. Resistance scouts reported Khan's forces using disruptors to disable entire resistance safe zones in Asia within hours. Ruthless consolidation. Khan's forces have eradicated entire settlements that resisted, leaving scorched earth in their wake. Survivors tell harrowing tales of his soldiers' brutal efficiency and unwavering loyalty. Strategic expansion. Khan's empire grows by leveraging technological and ley-line superiority, while subjugating populations under the guise of unity and protection. Reports now suggest Khan has begun targeting dormant nodes in Europe, which could amplify his power tenfold. Recommendations: prioritize intelligence gathering on Khan's ley-line disruptors and their strategic deployment. Establish diplomatic ties with factions threatened by Khan's march, particularly the Nordic Alliance and Texas Republic. Mobilize contingency plans to counteract potential incursions into resistance-controlled territories. Narrative timestamp: December 18, 2042. Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Ulaanbaatar, the jewel of Khan's growing empire, radiated a strange and chilling majesty. Neon lights bled into the crisp night air, illuminating city streets patrolled by Tesla-enforced drones and mounted warriors whose armor glinted like obsidian. Towering glass spires rose where yurts once stood, while banners emblazoned with the Khanate's sigil fluttered in the frozen wind. The ley lines beneath the city pulsed faintly, visible veins of energy snaking toward the horizon. Journal entry. Excerpt from Sofia Alvarez's personal journal. Genghis Khan has turned history itself into a weapon. I stood on the outskirts of Ulaanbaatar today, watching as the city seemed to breathe with power. The ley lines feed his empire, and from them, he draws his strength. Every innovation the Initiative left behind, every ruin, every fragment of knowledge, he has claimed. He speaks of unity, of a world without chaos. But I see the truth. His armies march like phantoms, shadows gliding across the steppes, burning villages and razing monuments in his name. Families vanish. Resistance cells are hunted like prey. For every ley-line node he controls, another region becomes an extension of his will. He does not conquer with brute force alone, he conquers minds. I met a farmer yesterday, one of the few survivors from a village Khan's forces razed. She clutched at the edge of my coat with trembling hands, her voice cracked and hoarse. "It speaks to him," she whispered, her gaze darting to shadows only she could see. "The serpent, it lives in the lines. It's no god, no savior. It's hungry. And Khan, he's feeding it. One day, it will devour him, and us with him." Her words trailed into silence, and she stared into the distance, as if the truth itself had stripped her of her soul. "It speaks to him, it gives him dreams," she said, her eyes vacant, as if the truth had hollowed her out. We have fought tyranny before, but this feels different. It feels older. It feels inevitable. Narrative. The great hall of Khan's palace loomed like a cathedral to power, the air alive with the mingling scents of oil, incense, and charred metal. The throne of Genghis Khan, crafted from the remnants of shattered war machines, was a symbol as much as it was a seat of power, a fusion of ancient might and modern ingenuity. To his followers, it was a testament to their leader's strength, a reminder that he could conquer both the machines of the modern world and the chaos of the old. To his enemies, it was a warning: resistance would be ground into the same twisted metal, their defiance reforged into tools of his empire. Khan's voice rolled like thunder through the chamber. "The world falters, blind to its weakness. Empires crumble. Leaders bicker like children while chaos consumes their nations." His hand swept across the holographic map projected before him, veins of ley-line energy pulsing with every movement. "But I see order." Khan paused, his gaze settling on his grandson and chief advisor, Kublai Khan, whose furrowed brow betrayed his unease. "The serpent has shown me the truth. The ley lines are the blood of this world. Whoever controls them, controls the But the resistance, grandfather," Kublai interjected, his tone carefully measured. "They know the ley lines, their secrets. They will not stand idle." Genghis Khan's lips twisted into a smile, his teeth bared like a predator. "The resistance will crumble. They are embers of a dying flame. Their secrets will become ours, their knowledge our weapon. Let them cling to hope. It will make their fall all the more satisfying." Outro Extra. Excerpt from Declassified Resistance Intelligence Report. Subject: The Serpent's Gambit. Khan's Manipulation of Ley Lines. Date: December 20, 2042. Classification: Eyes-only. Key findings: Ley line mastery. Khan has demonstrated the ability to weaponize ley lines, disrupting power grids and destabilizing entire regions with surgical precision. Serpent entity. Khan appears to be communicating with an entity referred to as the Serpent. Ancient texts, discovered within the ruins of a pre-initiative temple deep in the Himalayas, describe it as a force of knowledge and chaos, capable of influencing both matter and consciousness. These texts, etched into obsidian tablets and guarded for centuries by forgotten sects, warn of the serpent's hunger for dominance and its ability to corrupt those who seek to wield its power. Global implications: If Khan succeeds in fully mastering this power, the balance of the world will shift irreversibly in his favor. Recommendations: Intercept and disrupt Khan's ley line operations immediately. Research the serpent entity's origins and vulnerabilities to develop effective countermeasures. Coordinate with all factions opposing Khan to mount a united resistance. Outro quote: "We do not fight against men. We fight against empires, against ghosts, against the very fabric of reality. To win, we must unmake the chains they would bind us with." Sofia Alvarez, Resistance Command Briefing, December 22, 2042. Bonus Chapter 5. Echoes of Paperclip. Opening quote: "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." George Santayana ________________________ Big news article. The Nordic Times headline: The Ghost of Paperclip, Initiative's Nazi Roots Exposed. Public outrage engulfs the world. Oslo, Norway, January 20, 2045. A bombshell report published today by the Nordic Times has exposed the Phoenix Initiative's deep and disturbing connections to Nazi Germany. The report, based on a trove of declassified documents, wartime journals, and eyewitness accounts, reveals that the initiative's founders were former Nazi scientists and officials who escaped justice after World War II. One particularly damning discovery involves Dr. Heinrich Falk, a former SS biologist whose grotesque experiments on human longevity under the Reich were disguised as a life extension research. Under Operation Paperclip, Falk was absorbed into Allied research programs, where he continued his work in secret laboratories. Documents detail how his techniques evolved, eventually laying the groundwork for the initiative's regeneration breakthroughs, but at a horrifying cost to countless unnamed subjects. The revelations have ignited a firestorm of controversy, with protests erupting in major cities across the globe. Memorials honoring initiative visionaries have been vandalized, their legacies now synonymous with betrayal and exploitation. In Berlin, the once pristine statue of Dr. Heinrich Falk lay defaced, his stone likeness covered in blood-red paint with the words "murderer" scrawled across its pedestal. Nearby, candles burned as silent witnesses to those lost in his experiments, while crowds gathered, chanting for justice and tearing down plaques that once celebrated his advancements. World leaders scrambled to issue statements of condemnation. French President Camille Leclerc called the revelations a stain on humanity's moral fabric, while others have demanded an international tribunal to investigate surviving initiative leadership. Public trust, so carefully rebuilt after the initiative's fall, is once again in jeopardy. Over the years, carefully orchestrated public trials, reparations, and memorials sought to heal the wounds left by the initiative's reign. Former resistance leaders like Greta Heller worked tirelessly to restore faith in leadership, creating a fragile unity among survivors. Now, with these revelations, that hard-won trust feels shattered, a betrayal resurfacing from the grave, reopening scars many believed were beginning to fade. The resistance issued a statement calling the revelations both a vindication and a warning that vigilance against ideology-fueled tyranny is eternal. Extra 1. Declassified CIA document, Operation Paperclip assessment date, December 1947 classification, top secret, or declassified January 18, 2045, subject, evaluation of Operation Paperclip and potential long-term risks summary, Operation Paperclip, the program to recruit German scientists and engineers, has yielded significant benefits in advancing U.S. technological capabilities, particularly in rocketry and aerospace. However, the integration of former Nazi personnel poses inherent risks. Key concerns: ideological contamination. The potential for former Nazi scientists to retain their ideological beliefs and influence U.S. research programs is a significant concern. Their expertise is valuable, but their loyalty and motivations remain suspect. Security breaches. The risk of classified information being leaked to foreign powers, particularly the Soviet Union, is heightened by the presence of former Nazi personnel with prior allegiances to hostile regimes. Moral implications. The ethical implications of collaborating with individuals complicit in Nazi war crimes are profound. Public awareness of Operation Paperclip could generate significant backlash and undermine public trust in government institutions. Recommendations: enhanced vetting procedures, strengthen background checks and psychological evaluations for all recruited personnel. Compartmentalization, restrict access to sensitive information and compartmentalize research projects to minimize the risk of leaks. Long-term monitoring, establish a dedicated unit within the intelligence community to monitor the activities and associations of former Nazi personnel for potential threats. Extra 2. Fragment of Klaus Heller's wartime journal entry date, April 15, 1945. The world is collapsing around us, but the Führer assures us that this is not the end. Project Phoenix, our final hope, will ensure that the Reich's legacy endures. We have unlocked secrets that will reshape the world, that will grant us power beyond the wildest dreams of our enemies. My research, though initially deemed insignificant, has become a cornerstone of Project Phoenix. Cellular regeneration, the ability to heal wounds, to extend life, to enhance human capabilities, the possibilities are limitless. The Führer sees it as the key to creating a superior race, a master race capable of conquering time itself. I am torn. The potential of my work is undeniable, but the ends to which it is being applied fill me with dread. The atrocities I have witnessed, the suffering inflicted in the name of scientific progress, haunt my waking moments. Today, I oversaw experiments, atrocities disguised as on prisoners we call subjects. One man, barely more than skin and bone, whispered a prayer as we injected him with the serum. His body convulsed violently, his screams clawing at my ears as his flesh darkened and blistered. The others watched in silent terror, their hollow eyes reflecting what I dare not say aloud. We are no longer men of science, but architects of suffering. I cannot erase his face from my mind. It lingers like a specter, a reminder of the monster I have become. Their cries echo in my ears, and yet I tell myself it's for a greater good. That is the lie I whisper to quiet my shame. If there is a future, will it absolve us or curse us? Extra 3. Intercepted Phoenix Initiative Internal Memo, or declassified January 19, 2045, date, June 12, 1946 from Ernst Weidmann to Project Phoenix Research Team Subject. Maintaining the vision, we have been forced to adapt, to shed our old skins and embrace new identities. But our purpose remains unchanged. The world may believe that the Reich is vanquished, but we know the truth. We are the Phoenix, rising from the ashes, carrying the flame of progress into a new era. The principles that guided our work under the Reich remain valid: strength, discipline, the pursuit of scientific excellence. We will continue our research, unhindered by the constraints of morality or the weakness of lesser minds. The world will be remade in our image, whether it embraces our vision willingly or is forced to kneel before our power. Our enemies scoff at us. They call us remnants, relics, clinging to a dead ideology. But they are blind. They do not see what we have become, or what we are becoming. The tools we developed under Project Phoenix, the secrets we uncovered from the earth, are ours to wield. They will beg for our mercy when the world burns, and we alone stand untouched. Integration notes. Enhance the Nordic Times news article with global fallout, public protests, and statements from major factions to make it more dynamic and realistic. Deepened Klaus Heller's journal entry with vivid emotional detail, particularly during his reflection on the human cost of his experiments. Expanded the Phoenix Initiative memo to add foreboding language and increase narrative tension about the initiative's enduring ambition and confidence. Extra 4. Interview transcript. Former U.S. intelligence official speaks out. Source. Interview with Robert McAllister, former CIA analyst, conducted by the Nordic Times, January 18, 2045. McAllister. We knew about the Nazi connections. We had files, reports, evidence that the initiative's founders were former SS officers, scientists who had worked on some of the Reich's most horrific projects. But it was swept under the rug. The Cold War was heating up, and we needed their expertise. They had knowledge, technology that we desperately wanted to acquire, to keep out of Soviet hands. Reporter. Are you saying that the US government knowingly allowed former Nazis to infiltrate their institutions, to potentially continue their work? McAllister. In essence, yes. It was a Faustian bargain, a gamble that we hoped would pay off in the long run. We underestimated the depth of their commitment to their ideology, their ability to manipulate and deceive. We created a monster, and it took decades for the world to see its true face. Reporter. Is there any evidence that the initiative's early research projects influenced later breakthroughs? McAllister. Absolutely. Take the early tests on energy weaponization conducted in secret in the Nevada deserts. Many of those technologies were directly inspired by work started in the Reich's final days. Klaus Heller's theories on regenerative biology? They built on data collected from horrific human trials under Nazi oversight. These were not harmless discoveries. Every advance came with a price, a debt paid in lives. Extra 5. Resistance Propaganda Pamphlet, The Sins of the Fathers excerpt. They called it progress. They called it enlightenment. They promised us a future free from disease, from poverty, from the limitations of our mortal flesh. But their promises were built on a foundation of lies, their vision a nightmare disguised as a utopia. The Phoenix Initiative, the architects of this dystopia, were not visionaries, but vultures, feeding on the carcass of a defeated empire. They escaped justice, infiltrated our institutions, and poisoned our world with their ideology of control, their obsession with power, their disdain for human life. I stood in the ruins of their research facilities, the air still acrid with smoke and death. In the underground bunkers of Bavaria, we found chambers lined with steel and soundproofed, cages where their subjects are screamed unheard. Names were scratched into the cold metal walls: Anna, age 8, Eric, don't forget me, the writing shaky, desperate. Beside one cage, a small stuffed bear lay abandoned, its fur singed and matted with soot, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded in that place. I stood frozen in that moment, my breath caught in my chest, as I imagined their tiny hands etching those last words into the It was not just the absence of sound, but the weight of all those unheard voices that crushed me, each plea for remembrance echoing louder than any scream ever could. Names were scratched into the walls, desperate prayers for mercy. This was their truth. This is their legacy. The sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. But we, the children of a new generation, refuse to inherit their legacy of hatred, their thirst for domination. We will break the chains of the past, dismantle their machines, and reclaim our birthright, freedom. Extra 6. Greta Heller's speech at the Global Unity Summit, Confronting the Past excerpt. The revelations about the initiative's Nazi roots have shaken us to our core. We are forced to confront a truth that many have long suspected, but few dared to speak aloud: the legacy of evil is not easily erased. It lingers in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to resurface, to poison the well of human progress. I remember the stories my grandmother told me, how she hid in a cellar as the Reich's troops marched through her village of Kaltenbach, its cobbled streets echoing with the clatter of boots and the screams of the taken. She spoke of smoke rising from the town square, where the local bakery and church burned together, the smell of ash mingling with the scent of bread still in the ovens. Her friends and neighbors were dragged into the open, their cries fading into silence as they disappeared into trucks that never returned. And now, we learn that the architects of that nightmare walked among us, smiled as they spoke of progress, and shook hands with those who should have held them to account. We cannot pretend that the past is irrelevant, that the crimes committed in the name of ideology are somehow absolved by the passage of time. We must acknowledge the darkness, learn from its lessons, and commit ourselves to building a future where such horrors are never repeated. To achieve this, we must take tangible steps, establish international tribunals to hold surviving architects accountable, erect memorials that bear witness to the victims' suffering, and ensure reparations reach those communities still scarred by these atrocities. Only through concrete action can we honor the past and secure a just and hopeful future. Justice demands accountability. Those who were complicit in the initiative's crimes, those who benefited from their deception, must be held responsible. We cannot allow the architects of this dystopia to escape the consequences of their actions. The world deserves truth, reconciliation, and a commitment to building a future founded on justice, not on the echoes of tyranny. Expanded Journal Entry, Journal of Klaus Heller, Wrestling with the Ghost of Paperclip. Entry date, January 20, 2045. The truth has a way of emerging, no matter how deeply buried, how carefully concealed. The revelations about Operation Paperclip, about the initiative's Nazi roots, have unleashed a torrent of emotions, a maelstrom of guilt, shame, and a desperate longing for redemption. I cannot deny my past, cannot erase the choices I made in the shadow of a dying empire. I was a young scientist, seduced by the allure of forbidden knowledge, blinded by the promise of a world transformed by scientific breakthroughs. I believed that my work, my research, could heal, could elevate, could push the boundaries of human potential. But I remember their faces. One subject, a young girl no older than 10, stared at me with unblinking eyes as we administered the serum. Her body withered in hours, her voice reduced to faint gasps before she was still. I stood paralyzed, the syringe still in my trembling hands, unable to look away as the life drained from her. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out her final breaths, and when silence finally came, it was as if the room itself mourned. I turned to the mirror on the wall, and for the first time, I truly saw the monster I had become. Her face, gaunt, unblinking, has haunted me every night since, a reminder of the sins I can never atone for. I looked into the mirror that night and saw a stranger staring back, a man who had traded his soul for ambition. The burden of guilt is heavy, a weight that I will carry to my grave. But I will not allow it to paralyze me. I will use the knowledge I possess, the skills I honed in the service of darkness, to fight for the light. I will dedicate the remainder of my life to dismantling the legacy of the initiative, to ensuring that their vision of control, their perversion of scientific progress, is never realized. The world is wary, distrustful. The revelations about the initiative's past have shattered the fragile trust that was beginning to mend. We must rebuild, not on a foundation of secrets and deception, but on a bedrock of truth, transparency, and a shared commitment to a future where humanity's potential is nurtured, not exploited. I cannot undo the past, but I can shape what remains of the future. That is my penance, my purpose, my reckoning. Outro quote: We are not prisoners of the past. We are architects of the future. But the blueprints for that future must be drawn with vigilance, for the echoes of tyranny are always waiting to resurface. We must act, through education, through accountability, through unrelenting resolve, to ensure that the mistakes of the past do not become the foundation of tomorrow. Nelson Mandela. Chapter 16. Echoes of Betrayal. Opening quote: The enemy of my enemy is not my friend. He is merely the enemy I face today, while the true enemy waits in the shadows. Cleopatra 7, A Clone, Nordic Alliance Declarations, 2044 News article. The Dallas Dispatch headline: Texas CFS border erupts in violence. Initiative involvement suspected as peace talks collapse. Dallas, Texas, September 20, 2044. The fragile peace between the Republic of Texas and the Confederated Free States, or CFS, has shattered, as a series of violent skirmishes have erupted along their heavily fortified border near the wild wastes. The escalating conflict has dashed hopes for a negotiated settlement to the long-standing dispute over control of vital ley-line nodes in the region. Eyewitness accounts and intercepted communications suggest the involvement of covert operatives utilizing advanced technology consistent with remnants of the Phoenix initiative. Reports describe drones capable of cloaking their movements, delivering precision strikes undetectable by conventional radar, and weaponized energy fields that disintegrate physical barriers in seconds. Survivors speak of an eerie, shimmering blue light preceding attacks, a hallmark of initiative-modified ley-line technology. The violence has sparked widespread panic and fueled accusations of betrayal on both sides, jeopardizing the already tenuous stability of the region. The international community is calling for an immediate ceasefire and an independent investigation into the alleged initiative involvement. Intro Extra, excerpt from a classified resistance intelligence report. Subject: Analysis of Texas CFS border clashes. Date: September 21, 2040. For classification: Top Secret Assessment. The recent outbreak of violence along the Texas CFS border is a deeply concerning development, with potentially catastrophic consequences for the region and beyond. Evidence points to a deliberate escalation of the conflict, orchestrated by forces seeking to exploit existing tensions and undermine the fragile peace. Key observations. 1. The initiative's hidden hand. Intercepted communications and recovered equipment suggest the involvement of initiative remnants in instigating the violence. Their motives remain unclear, but it is highly probable they seek to destabilize the region and exploit the chaos for their own strategic advantage. 2. Propaganda warfare. Both Texan and CFS media outlets are engaged in a fierce propaganda war, each blaming the other for the violence and fueling public outrage. This orchestrated misinformation campaign is further exacerbating tensions and hindering efforts to de-escalate the situation. Texan media broadcasts chilling reports of alleged CFS soldiers raiding small border towns, leaving behind smoldering ruins and cryptic graffiti claiming allegiance to a Southern vanguard. Meanwhile, CFS outlets spread vivid stories of rogue Texan militia targeting refugee convoys, branding them traitors in supposed alliance with foreign interests. Each narrative, though carefully constructed, inflames anger and distrust, obscuring the initiative's invisible hand. 3. Ley-line disruptions. The skirmishes have coincided with a series of unexplained ley-line disruptions in the disputed Wild Wastes region. While it is unclear whether these disruptions are a cause or effect of the violence, they have further heightened anxieties and fueled speculation about the initiative's involvement. Recommendations. 1. Exposure and counterintelligence. The resistance must prioritize efforts to expose the initiative's involvement in the conflict. This includes gathering irrefutable evidence, intercepting communications, and disseminating this information to the public and to international organizations. 2. Counter-propaganda efforts. Launch a coordinated counter-propaganda campaign to expose the disinformation being spread by both Texan and CFS media outlets and to promote a message of peace and unity. 3. Facilitate dialogue. Seek to establish back channels of communication between moderate elements within both Texas and the CFS to explore avenues for de-escalation and dialogue. Narrative timestamp, September 25, 2044, Resistance Headquarters, Geneva. The atmosphere within the Resistance's Geneva headquarters was heavy with a tension that mirrored the storm clouds gathering over the city. Rain lashed against the windows, mirroring the turbulence that had engulfed the world. The harsh drumming of water against the glass seemed to grow louder, as though echoing the unease in the room. The storm dimmed the lights outside, casting faint, fractured shadows across the floor and walls. Greta felt the weight of it, the storm pressing in from all sides, a reminder of the chaos spreading far beyond the walls of their headquarters. Each gust of wind rattled the panes, as if urging the resistance to act before it was too late. The main conference room, usually a hub of strategic planning and coordinated action, was now filled with a grim silence, punctuated only by the occasional frustrated sigh or the sharp staccato of fingers tapping on keyboards. Greta Heller stood at the head of the table, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic map projected before her. The map displayed the contested border, its ley line nodes flickering ominously in red, as if bleeding energy into the surrounding regions. "This conflict is not an accident," Greta said, her voice low but resolute. "The initiative's fingerprints are all over this. The patterns are too deliberate, the disruptions too precise. They are orchestrating this chaos." Sofia Alvarez, the veteran resistance leader, leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "They are destabilizing the ley lines deliberately. I've seen this before. It's not just an attack on Texas or the CFS, it's an attack on the entire region's energy network. If the ley lines collapse, the energy disruptions will cascade across borders, crippling infrastructure in neighboring regions and potentially triggering a global economic crisis. Cities reliant on ley line power could go dark, supply chains would shatter, and nations already teetering on the brink would spiral into chaos. This isn't just a regional conflict, it's a knife at the throat of global stability. If they succeed, they'll hold both nations hostage." Klaus Heller, his face pale and drawn, nodded grimly. "The energy data backs that up. I've been analyzing the disruptions, and there's a pattern, specific nodes targeted to maximize instability. If they keep this up, we're looking at a complete collapse of the grid." "And the propaganda?" Anya Volkov interjected, her arms crossed and her expression hard. "The media in both territories is being manipulated. The initiative's operatives are pushing narratives that pit Texas and the CFS against each other. Each side sees itself as the victim and the other as the aggressor. It's a classic divide-and-conquer strategy." Greta's gaze swept the room. "We need to act. The initiative's strategy is clear: destabilize, divide, and control. If we don't expose their involvement and stop this escalation, they'll turn Texas and the CFS into another battlefield, one we can't afford to lose. Journal entry, Greta Heller date, September 25, 2040. Full location, Resistance HQ, Geneva. The world is fracturing, pulling apart at the seams. The initiative, though weakened, is far from defeated. Their tendrils of influence reach into every corner of the globe, twisting events to their will, manipulating leaders, and exploiting our vulnerabilities. The Texas CFS conflict, it's a textbook example of their tactics. Sow discord, fan the flames of hatred, and watch as nations tear themselves apart. And the ley lines, they are the prize, the key to controlling not just energy, but the very fabric of reality. We're fighting a war on multiple fronts, a war against their technology, a war against their propaganda, a war against the darkness that seeks to consume us all. But our greatest enemy is ourselves, our doubts, our divisions, our fear. We can't afford to be fractured. We must stand together, united in our purpose, unwavering in our resolve. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Outro extra. Excerpt from an intercepted Phoenix Initiative transmission sender, unknown, or designated subject Alpha, recipient, unknown, or designated subject Omega, date, September 27, 2040. For classification, ultra top secret. The Texan nobles are proving to be more troublesome than anticipated. Their rebellion is disrupting our plans and attracting unwanted attention. The CFS is also proving to be less predictable than our initial assessments indicated. Their leadership seems divided, their loyalties uncertain. We must adjust our strategy. Escalate the conflict, but maintain plausible deniability. Target key ley-line nodes to create chaos and further destabilize the region. Losing control of even one node could cause catastrophic energy surges, destabilizing nearby infrastructure and rendering entire cities powerless. Regions dependent on ley-line energy for communication, transportation, and defense would crumble, creating an opening for us to assert dominance amid the collapse. Our objective remains unchanged: to control the ley lines, to control the flow of power, to control the destiny of nations. Outro quote: The true measure of a leader is not their ability to wield power, but their willingness to sacrifice it for the sake of those they are sworn to protect. In the face of betrayal, in the midst of chaos, true leadership shines brightest, illuminating the path toward unity and hope. General Marcus Blackthorne, Address to the Resistance High Command, 2044. Chapter 17, Ghosts of Conquest. Opening quote: The empires of the past crumble, but their shadows linger, seeking new forms, new vessels to perpetuate their reign. Sofia Alvarez, Resistance Archives, 2043. News article. The Nordic Times headline: Nordic alliance remains neutral amidst global ley-line disputes. Queen Christina emphasizes diplomacy and self-reliance. Oslo, Norway. As tensions escalate across the globe over control of the vital ley-line network, the Nordic alliance, led by Queen Christina of Sweden, maintains a steadfast commitment to neutrality. Queen Christina, renowned for her historical legacy of political and social reforms, has emphasized diplomacy and self-reliance as the guiding principles for the alliance's survival in a fractured world. Intro extra. Excerpt from The Watchmaker's Shadow, fragmented occult document, discovered amidst the ruins of a Dresden manor linked to the Nazi occult division. This enigmatic text predates the formation of the Phoenix Initiative. The manor's archives revealed disturbing accounts of rituals performed to tap into the Earth's bloodlines, what we now recognize as ley lines. One particularly chilling account described a ceremony known as the Rite of Resonance, where acolytes, clad in black robes, circled an ancient stone obelisk while chanting incantations in a forgotten language. Witnesses claimed the ground trembled and an unnatural red glow seeped from the earth, illuminating symbols carved into the stone that matched ley-line convergence points. Those who participated were said to emerge changed, their eyes glazed and voices whispering secrets that could not be understood, as if the earth itself had spoken through them. Occultists believe these energies could be manipulated to alter reality itself, blending scientific curiosity with dark mysticism. Diagrams etched in blood and symbols resembling ley-line maps hinted that the Phoenix Initiative's early scientists built their foundation upon this forbidden knowledge, seeking to harness its power under the guise of progress. It speaks of harnessing the lifeblood, a network of energy now known as ley lines. This document, a chilling testament to the initiative's origins, reveals their scientific ambitions were rooted in arcane explorations, their quest for power entwined with ancient rituals and forgotten knowledge. Narrative timestamp, October 1, 2044, Royal Palace, Oslo, Nordic Alliance territory. The Grand Hall of the Royal Palace in Oslo was a study in contrasts. Ancient tapestries depicting scenes of Viking conquests hung alongside sleek holographic displays showcasing the latest in renewable energy technology. The scent of pinewood fires mingled with the faint hum of ley-line regulators, a subtle reminder of the delicate balance between tradition and progress that defined the Nordic Alliance. Journal entry, Cleopatra 7, Oclone, date, October 1, 2044. Location, Royal Palace, Oslo. Ramses grows bolder with each passing day. His declaration of divine rule, his blatant manipulation of the ley lines, it's a dangerous game he's playing, one that threatens to destabilize the entire region. The initiative remnants are scattered, fractured, but their ambition lingers. Whispers of their involvement in the Texas CFS conflict, their attempts to exploit the chaos for their own gain, reach even these frozen shores. They are like a virus, mutating, adapting, seeking new hosts to infect. Christina clings to neutrality, believing that we can remain above the fray, that diplomacy and self-reliance will shield us from the storm. Yet cracks are already showing. Reports of initiative operatives crossing into Nordic waters have caused unrest among the coastal cities, prompting whispers of betrayal and calls for stronger action. Refugees from the Texas CFS conflict plead for sanctuary at our borders, their hollow eyes and gaunt faces a testament to the horrors they have fled. A mother clutched her child, her voice hoarse as she begged a border guard to let them through, recounting a night when ley-line surges swallowed her village in fire and shadow. Meanwhile, southern merchants grumble about disrupted trade routes, their livelihoods threatened by the rising instability, further straining the alliance's neutrality. The world's chaos is knocking at our door, and I fear it is only a matter of time before neutrality becomes untenable. But I fear she is naive. The world is not a chessboard where we can simply choose to sit out a move. We are all players in this game, whether we like it or not. And the stakes are higher than ever before. Narrative, Queen Christina, her silver hair crowned with a circlet of braided platinum, surveyed the assembled council members with a regal composure that belied the turmoil swirling around them. Her blue eyes, sharp and intelligent, flicked from one face to the next, taking in their anxieties, their doubts, their hopes. Beside her, Leif Erikson, her trusted advisor and a formidable warrior in his own right, stood stoic and watchful, his hand resting on the hilt of his ceremonial sword. The room buzzed with a subdued tension. The news from the south, brought by weary couriers who braved the treacherous sea lanes, was grim. The Texas CFS conflict raged on, fueled by ley-line disruptions and the shadowy machinations of the initiative remnants. Energy surges erupted unpredictably, causing blackouts in entire cities and destabilizing communication networks across the southern territories. Fields of crops withered overnight, their lifeblood drained by unnatural fluctuations, leaving farmers staring helplessly at desiccated soil that once promised abundance. Strange magnetic anomalies disrupted navigation and transportation systems, with entire convoys vanishing without a trace in regions now described as cursed. In towns closest to the ley-line disruptions, whispers spread of livestock collapsing without warning, and families fleeing their homes in desperation, abandoning villages they had called home for generations. Communities are paralyzed by fear, unsure whether the land itself has turned against them or if something darker lurks beneath. The land itself seemed to groan under the strain, its equilibrium unraveling as the initiative's influence grew more pronounced. Ramses, the self-proclaimed God-King of Zion, tightened his grip on the Middle East, his ambition a growing threat to the fragile peace that had taken root in the ashes of the initiative's downfall. The world teeters on the brink, Christina said, her voice clear and commanding, echoing through the hall. The echoes of the initiative's tyranny still haunt us, their whispers tempting those who seek power for themselves. But we, the Nordic Alliance, must remain a beacon of hope in these dark times. We will not be swayed by fear, nor will we succumb to the siren song of conquest. Your Majesty, Leif interjected, his voice deep and resonant, Ramses's actions cannot be ignored. His control over the ley lines, his ambition to reshape the world in his image, it poses a direct threat to our security, to the very principles upon which our alliance is founded. Peace through strength, Christina replied, her tone unwavering. We will not be the aggressors, but we will defend our borders, our values, our way of life. We will fortify our defenses, strengthen our alliances, and prepare for any eventuality. But what alliances, Your Majesty? Cleopatra VII, a clone, rose from her seat, her voice laced with a sharp edge of concern. The world is a kaleidoscope of shifting loyalties, of alliances forged and broken on the whims of ambitious men. Who can we trust in these treacherous times? We must be discerning, Cleopatra, Christina replied, her gaze meeting the younger woman's with a steady intensity. Cleopatra held her gaze, a flicker of frustration crossing her face. Does she not see how quickly alliances shift? She thought. The memory of Egypt's fall echoed in her mind, a betrayal at the hands of those who had once sworn loyalty. She had trusted Caesar, trusted Rome, and in the end, the alliances she had relied upon became the instruments of her undoing. Neutrality, she knew, was often the mask behind which defeat crept silently. The memory of Egypt's fall echoed in her mind, a warning from history that neutrality often came too late. She bit back her retort, forcing herself to trust Christina's wisdom, though doubt lingered like a shadow at the edge of her thoughts. We must seek allies who share our values, who believe in a future where cooperation, not conquest, guides our path. A murmur of agreement rippled through the council chamber, but the air remained thick with uncertainty. Outro extra. Excerpt from a resistance communication intercepted by the Nordic Alliance sender, Greta Heller recipient, Anya Volkov location, unknown date, October 3, 2040 for classification, highly confidential. We've made contact with key figures within the Texan resistance movement. Their leader, Duke Alexander Hawthorne, is a shrewd strategist, a man who understands the dangers of unchecked ambition. When Adler pushed for an aggressive incursion into CFS territory, it was Hawthorne who defied him, withdrawing key battalions to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Instead, he fortified Texan border towns and brokered covert truces with CFS commanders, proving his ability to balance strength with pragmatism. Hawthorne's decisions spared countless lives and kept Texas from descending into a broader, unwinnable conflict. He opposes Adler's aggressive stance towards the CFS and sees the initiative's involvement as a threat to Texan sovereignty. The CFS is a more complex landscape. Their leadership is fractured, their ideologies diverse. But there are those who yearn for peace, who recognize the need for unity in the face of a common enemy. Our objective is to facilitate dialogue, to bridge the divide between these factions, and to forge a united front against the initiative remnants. We must convince them that their true enemy is not each other, but the ghosts of the past that seek to control their future. Just as the initiative stoked the fires of war between the Reich and Free Spain, profiting from their suffering to consolidate their power, they now seek to manipulate Texas and the CFS. If we fail to act, we risk falling into the same trap, a fractured world, weakened and ripe for their return. Outro quote. We are not defined by the battles we fight, but by the choices we make in the aftermath. The path to peace is often paved with the rubble of shattered ambitions, but it is a path we must tread, with courage and compassion, if we are to build a world worthy of our dreams. Queen Christina, Address to the Nordic Alliance Council, 2044. Chapter 18. Echoes of Betrayal. Opening quote. Trust is the rarest commodity in the shadow of tyranny. Freya Lang, Meditations in Shadow, 2029 news article. The Austin Star headline, Texas monarchy faces internal strife. Noble rebellion challenges King Adler's authority amidst ley-line disputes. Austin, Texas, August 10, 2044. King William Adler's rule over the Republic of Texas faces its most significant challenge yet, as a faction of powerful nobles openly questions his authority and Policies. The dissent stems from Adler's handling of the escalating conflict with the Confederated Free States, or CFS, over control of key ley-line nodes in the disputed Wild Wastes region. The Wild Wastes, long a contested zone, are now at the heart of a political firestorm. The volatile energy network coursing beneath the region has made it a strategic prize for both Texas and the CFS, but recent ley-line surges have further destabilized the already fragile landscape. Reports from border settlements describe mysterious energy flares that have disrupted technology, decimated crops, and rendered entire towns uninhabitable overnight. Nobles aligned with Duke Alexander Hawthorne argue that Adler's policies have only worsened these conditions. The Wild Wastes are a tinderbox, Hawthorne declared during a recent gathering of dissenting lords. King Adler's recklessness invites chaos. Our people are suffering under the weight of his ambition. We must seek negotiation, not escalation. Supporters of King Adler, however, insist that the king's actions are necessary to secure Texas's sovereignty. The ley lines are too critical to cede, said General Elias Wright, commander of Adler's border forces. Without control of the energy flowing through the Wild Wastes, Texas's future remains in peril. We cannot allow the CFS to gain even an inch of ground. Civil unrest is spreading beyond the palace wall. In Austin, protests have erupted outside government buildings, with banners denouncing Adler's warmongering policies and demanding an end to military operations in the Wild Wastes. Trade routes have been disrupted, causing widespread shortages of goods and fueling discontent among merchants and civilians alike. Meanwhile, the growing presence of militia groups loyal to Hawthorne has heightened fears of an outright coup. The international community is watching closely. Diplomats from the Nordic Alliance and Free Spain have issued statements urging restraint and calling for independent mediation. Queen Christina of the Nordic Alliance emphasized the need for diplomacy over bloodshed, while resistance factions have begun disseminating propaganda, painting the Texan monarchy as both corrupt and vulnerable. With the stakes rising, political analysts predict that the fractures in Adler's court could lead to outright civil war unless a resolution is reached. Both sides remain entrenched, with little room for compromise. The ley lines, once symbols of prosperity, now loom as harbingers of destruction, threatening to tear Texas apart from within. Intro Extra. Excerpt from a resistance communication intercepted by the Nordic Alliance sender, Greta Heller recipient, Anya Volkov location, unknown date, October 3, 2040 for classification, highly confidential. We've made contact with key figures within the Texan resistance movement. Their leader, Duke Alexander Hawthorne, is a shrewd strategist, a man who understands the dangers of unchecked ambition. He opposes Adler's aggressive stance towards the CFS and sees the initiative's involvement as a threat to Texan sovereignty. The CFS is a more complex landscape. Their leadership is fractured, their ideologies diverse. But there are those who yearn for peace, who recognize the need for unity in the face of a common enemy. Our objective is to facilitate dialogue, to bridge the divide between these factions, and to forge a united front against the initiative remnants. We must convince them that their true enemy is not each other, but the ghosts of the past that seek to control their future. Remember what happened in Vienna when the initiative manipulated factions into conflict. Entire alliances crumbled, distracted by their rivalries, while the initiative seized control of key ley line nodes. We cannot let history repeat itself. Narrative timestamp, August 12, 2044, Royal Palace, Austin, Texas. The opulent ballroom of the Royal Palace in Austin, Texas, was a sea of restless energy. The air, thick with the scent of expensive perfume and simmering resentment, crackled with unspoken tension. Beneath the glittering chandeliers and the facade of Texan hospitality, a storm was brewing, a rebellion simmering just below the surface of polite society. Journal entry, King William Adler. Date, August 12, 2040. For the vipers in my own court hiss their discontent, their loyalty is thin as the summer silk they drape themselves in. Some avoid my gaze, fanning themselves with gilded handkerchiefs while others exchange furtive glances, their expressions a mix of disdain and anticipation. A lord near the edge of the crowd adjusts his cuffs with deliberate calm, but the tightness in his jaw betrays his unease. Another mutters to his companion, his words just out of reach but dripping with insolence. I can feel their defiance like a distant drumbeat, growing louder with each passing moment. Hawthorne, the serpent at their head, his ambition as boundless as the Texas plains, speaks of tradition, of the sanctity of the Texan way of life, but I see the glint of greed in his eyes, the hunger for power that masks itself as righteous indignation. They accuse me of recklessness, of warmongering, yet they fail to grasp the precariousness of our position. The CFS encroaches upon our borders, their claims to the wild wastes growing bolder with each passing day. The ley lines, the lifeblood of our nation, pulse with an energy that can sustain us or destroy us, and those who control them hold the fate of Texas in their hands. I will not yield to their demands. I will not surrender the hard-won unity of Texas to appease their petty ambitions. I will fight for the future of our nation, even if it means turning against those who claim to be my allies. Outro extra. Excerpt from a resistance strategy memo recovered during a raid on an initiative safe house in Houston. Subject: Exploiting Texan Internal Divisions. Date: August 14, 2040. For classification: Top Secret Assessment. The growing rift between King Adler and the Texan nobility presents a unique opportunity for the resistance. By discreetly supporting both sides of the conflict, we can further exacerbate their divisions, weakening Adler's authority and creating a window of opportunity to seize control of key ley line nodes in the Wild Waste. Recommendations: Provide intelligence and logistical support to Duke Hawthorne's faction, helping them to solidify their position and challenge Adler's rule. Simultaneously leak information to Adler's loyalists that suggests Hawthorne is colluding with the CFS, further fueling distrust and paranoia. Deploy covert operatives to the Wild Wastes to monitor ley line activity and prepare for a strategic intervention when the time is right. Objective: To create a power vacuum in Texas that allows the resistance to establish a foothold in the region and gain control of vital ley line resources. Outro quote: A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. In the cracks of their discord, we will find our opportunity to strike. Greta Heller, Resistance Field Journal, 2044. Bonus Chapter 6. The Last Threshold. Opening quote: Hope is a flame that burns brightest in the face of despair. It is the fuel of resistance, the compass that guides us through the darkest storms, and the beacon that signals the coming dawn. Sofia Alvarez, Resistance Chronicles, 2042. Big News article. The Global Times headline: World on Brink. Ramses declares divine rule as clone factions fracture. Resistance makes last stand against crumbling initiative. Global. July 1, 2042. The world teeters on the precipice of a global conflict unlike any seen before, as Ramses II, the resurrected pharaoh and leader of the rogue faction Zion, has formally declared himself a god-king, severing ties with the Phoenix Initiative and laying claim to dominion over vast swaths of the Middle East and North Africa. Ramses' declaration, broadcast globally from his stronghold in Jerusalem, has thrown the already fractured world into chaos. Millions watched as his image, cloaked in regal gold and framed by pulsing arcs of ley line energy, filled their screens. His voice, steady and commanding, seemed to reverberate through the very air itself, carrying a promise of salvation and a threat of domination. For many, the broadcast left a chilling mark, some gripped by awe at his presence, others paralyzed by fear of what his words foretold. In cities under his control, crowds gathered in squares, kneeling before massive holograms of Ramses as his proclamation echoed across the land, while elsewhere, the silence of empty streets spoke of a people holding their breath, uncertain of what the future now held. Humanity has wandered in darkness for too long, Ramses proclaimed, his voice echoing through grand halls lit with pulsing ley line energy. I have returned to guide the faithful, to lead those who seek salvation toward a new golden age. The weak cling to chaos, I will give them order. The doubters resist, I will give them purpose. This is not conquest, this is destiny. The Phoenix Initiative, weakened by internal divisions and the Resistance's relentless assaults, appears to be on the verge of collapse. However, Ramses' secession has reignited fears of a new age of tyranny, as his faction consolidates control over vital ley line nodes, leveraging the Earth's energy network to power his forces and expand his influence. Analysts describe Ramses as a master tactician, his forces combining ancient symbolism with cutting-edge initiative technology, creating a potent mix of military strength and religious fervor. World leaders have expressed outrage at Ramses's proclamation. Queen Christina of the Nordic Alliance condemned the move as a step backward into the darkest chapters of human history, while Free Spain has pledged military support to the resistance, urging a unified front against the God King's growing empire. In contrast, some regions under Zion's control report improved infrastructure and stability, leading to speculation that Ramses's rule may appeal to those disillusioned by decades of conflict and collapse. Under Ramses' leadership, cities once ravaged by war are being rebuilt, with ley-line technology powering irrigation, transportation, and even medical advancements. The age of decay is over, Ramses declared in another address to his followers. I offer renewal. I offer eternity to those who embrace the will of their God King. Yet this veneer of progress comes at a cost, dissent is swiftly crushed, and Ramses' followers are required to pledge unwavering loyalty. Resistance operatives have reported incidents of mass disappearances in rebel towns, their populations replaced by loyalist settlers. Historians have drawn chilling parallels to the tactics of ancient conquerors, such as Alexander the Great's forced assimilation of cultures or Julius Caesar's brutal subjugation of Gaul, warning that Ramses' vision of unity is enforced through fear and indoctrination rather than cooperation. His methods echo those of rulers who sought to remake the world in their image, leaving devastation in their wake under the guise of progress. The resistance, led by Greta Heller, has declared Ramses the single greatest threat to global freedom. In a broadcast message from an undisclosed location, Heller urged all factions to set aside their rivalries and unite against Zion, warning that the path of submission leads only to chains, and we must fight while there is still hope left to carry us forward. With the world's balance of power fracturing, the final conflict between freedom and tyranny looms on the horizon, and the outcome remains uncertain. Extra 1. Ramses' Reverie on the Nile. Date: July 1, 2042. Location: aboard the royal yacht, Nile River. The golden light of the sinking sun cast long, rippling streaks over the Nile's placid waters as Ramses II stood at the prow of his royal yacht. Behind him, courtiers whispered among themselves, their voices muffled by the sound of the river's gentle currents. The air was rich with the scent of lotus blossoms, carried by the faintest breeze that rippled the white silk of Ramses' ceremonial robes. He closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. Time, he mused, is a circle, always returning to itself. In his mind, the waters shimmered, and the present melted into the past. He saw himself in a memory, not as a clone but as a man, a conqueror, riding a barge much like this 1 millennia ago. The rhythmic creak of oars slicing through the water echoed around him, mingling with distant cries of triumph from the riverbanks. The barge swayed gently beneath his feet, and the faint scent of smoke clung to the breeze, a lingering whisper of villages left in ruin. The weight of the past settled heavily upon his shoulders, the memory as vivid as the golden light now shimmering on the Nile. The people of Thebes had gathered on the riverbanks, chanting his name, celebrating his triumph after he crushed a rebellion in Nubia. The smell of fires lingered on the air, a bitter reminder of the villages he had ordered razed, their ashes a warning to all who would defy him. Ramses remembered the messenger who approached him that evening, stepping cautiously onto the barge. The man's face had been pale as he knelt, bearing news of an uprising in the west, peasants refusing to submit to tribute collectors. They call you a tyrant, great one, the messenger had stammered. They resist because they believe their suffering has no end. The memory sharpened. Ramses had looked at the man, his anger tempered by cold resolve. They do not yet understand, he had replied. Their resistance is fleeting. My rule is eternal. When they see the order I bring, they will kneel willingly. The river stirred, and Ramses opened his eyes, the memory fading like ripples on the water. Now, as then, the world rebelled against his vision, against the order he offered. They resist because they fear change, he murmured to no one in particular, staring at the horizon where the Nile met the sky. But they will see. As it was before, so it shall be again. They will kneel, not because they are forced, but because they will understand that only I can lead them to salvation. The yacht glided forward, the fading sun casting Ramses' shadow long across the water. Behind him, a servant approached and bowed low, informing him that his next broadcast was prepared. Ramses turned, his face calm but his golden eyes alight with the fire of his purpose. The rebellion of the weak is inevitable, he thought, but so too is their surrender. Extra 2. Greta Heller's message to the resistance. Date: July 2, 2042. Classification: Top secret. Subject: Ramses and the Last Stand. The world is fracturing. The initiative, the monster we fought so hard to destroy, is tearing itself apart. Ramses, the resurrected pharaoh, believes he is a god. He seeks to rule the world, to enslave humanity under his twisted vision of a divine order. His forces are relentless. Reports from the field are harrowing. Resistance strongholds in Africa have been overrun, their defenders executed or conscripted into Zion's armies. Civilians fleeing the conflict speak of symbols burned into the land, intricate spirals and jagged glyphs etched deep into the earth, glowing faintly with an unnatural red light. Witnesses describe how these barriers hum with energy, warping the air around them like heat rising from a desert. Those who approach too closely feel a heavy pressure on their chest, a sense of dread that drives them back, as if the land itself rejects them. Some speak of hearing whispers in an ancient tongue, the words incomprehensible but filled with menace, lingering in their minds long after they have fled. But we will not surrender. We will not let the world fall back into the darkness of tyranny. We fight for the generations yet to come, for every child whose laughter deserves to echo in a free world, for every soul that longs to walk the earth without chains. The cost will be high. Many will fall. But the future of humanity hangs in the balance. We fight for the future. We fight for freedom. We fight for humanity. Outro. Extra. Anya Volkov's plea to world leaders. Date: July 5, 2042. Classification: Open transmission. Subject: Unity in the face of tyranny. Leaders of the world, I speak to you today with a heavy heart, but with a spirit of unwavering hope. Ramses II, the self-proclaimed God King of Zion, has unleashed a reign of terror. Entire villages have been razed to the ground under the guise of a purification, their inhabitants given a single choice: swear fealty to Zion or vanish without a trace. Reports from occupied regions tell of executions held in town squares, where dissenters are displayed as warnings to those who would resist. In Jerusalem, where Ramses' broadcasts emanate, the streets have been swept clean of opposition, the walls adorned with golden murals depicting his ascension and the subjugation of lesser nations. These chilling displays of power serve as a constant reminder of his vision: absolute obedience under the shadow of a self-proclaimed God. We have seen his cities rebuilt, but at what cost? Families displaced, dissent silenced, and armies marching under banners that promise salvation but deliver conquest. This is not peace. This is the illusion of order, a world reshaped to serve one man's ambition. Stand with the resistance. Let us pool our strength, our resources, and our collective resolve. If we do not act now, this false golden age will become a tomb for our freedom. Together, we can reclaim the light. Outro. Quote: Hope is the thing with feathers, that perches in the soul, and sings the tune without the words, and never stops, at all. Emily Dickinson. Chapter 19. The Reckoning. Opening quote: The die is cast. We march not for conquest, but for liberation. The future of humanity hangs in the balance, and we are the ones who must tip the scales. Greta Heller, Resistance Transmission, July 1, 2058. News article: Global Broadcast Network, or GBN, headline: Global conflict erupts, resistance launches all-out offensive against initiative, world leaders call for peace as chaos spreads. Geneva, Switzerland, July 1, 2058. The world has been into a conflict of unprecedented scale as the resistance, a global network of freedom fighters, has launched a coordinated offensive against the Phoenix Initiative, the tyrannical organization that has held vast swathes of the planet under its control for decades. Simultaneous attacks on initiative strongholds across Europe, Asia, and North America have disrupted energy grids, crippled communication networks, and ignited widespread uprisings among populations long subjected to the initiative's oppressive rule. World leaders are scrambling to contain the escalating violence, issuing desperate pleas for peace as fears of a global nuclear catastrophe escalate. Queen Christina of the Nordic Alliance appeared on a global broadcast, her voice firm yet tempered with sorrow. We must act with wisdom, not desperation, to prevent humanity from destroying itself. Meanwhile, streets across major cities, from New York to Berlin, have seen a wave of protests as citizens demand an end to the bloodshed. Some carry banners of support for the resistance, while others call for neutrality, fearing retaliation or escalation. The Vatican has renewed its plea for diplomacy, urging all sides to find a path toward reconciliation before irreversible damage is done. However, resistance leaders, including Greta Heller, have rejected calls for peace, stating that this is not a time for negotiation. This is a time for action. Freedom cannot be achieved through compromise with those who seek to enslave us. The initiative, under the increasingly erratic leadership of Commandant Elias Richter, has vowed to crush the resistance and maintain order at any cost. In a defiant broadcast, Richter declared, "We are the last line of order in a world descending into chaos. The resistance is not liberation, it is anarchy." His words, however, have done little to quell dissent, as reports emerge of entire towns reduced to rubble under the initiative's scorched earth tactics. Terrified civilians flood underground shelters, while resistance graffiti scrawled across war-torn cities, "No masters, no chains," spreads like wildfire, amplifying calls for freedom. Global analysts are divided on the outcome of this conflict. Some believe the initiative's technological superiority will ensure their survival, while others see the resistance's relentless coordination and popular support as the harbinger of the initiative's collapse. Objective: neutralize the production of augmented soldiers, disrupt the initiative's cloning program, and gather intelligence on Project Lazarus. Phase 2: coordinated global offensive target, initiative strongholds, Europe. Objective: liberate key cities, establish secure zones for resistance operations, and inspire widespread uprisings against initiative control. Target: Texas CFS border. Objective: exploit existing tensions between the Republic of Texas and the Confederated Free States to weaken initiative influence in North America and create opportunities for strategic alliances. Phase 3: consolidation and reconstruction target, global resistance headquarters, Zion. Objective: establish a unified command structure, coordinate global relief efforts, and lay the groundwork for a new world order based on cooperation and mutual respect. Personnel: global resistance forces, including augmented operatives, specialized strike teams, and civilian resistance fighters. Allied factions, including elements within the Nordic Alliance, Free Spain, and the Vatican. Key leaders: Greta Heller, Anya Volkov, Klaus Heller, Lincoln Clone, and Ramses Clone. Critical assets: ley-line based weaponry, advanced infiltration and sabotage technology, global communication network. A particularly striking image showed a child standing amidst ruins, clutching a single flower, a haunting symbol of innocence persisting against despair. Nearby, a wolf with glowing eyes and bared teeth loomed over shattered chains, an embodiment of defiance and ferocity. The vivid reds, golds, and fiery oranges seemed to blaze against the grey ruins, a living protest against oppression. Resistance fighters, their faces grim but determined, moved through the shattered streets, the echoes of gunfire and explosions a constant reminder of the high stakes of this conflict. Journal entry: Anya Volkov. Date: July 1, 2058. Location: Berlin, Germany. The city is a war zone. Explosions rock the streets, gunfire echoes through the canyons of steel and concrete. The smell of smoke and cordite hangs heavy in the air. Our forces are pushing deep into the heart of the initiative's stronghold, but the resistance is fierce. Their augmented soldiers are relentless, their tactics brutal. But we've come too far to back down now. We've lost too much. I can still see the faces of those we've lost: Sofia, Klaus, countless others who gave their lives for the dream of a free world. Their sacrifice fuels our determination. Narrative: assault on the neural hub. Anya Volkov crouched behind a crumbling barricade, the rhythmic staccato of gunfire a backdrop to the chaos unfolding around her. The initiative neural hub, a towering structure that resembled a metallic spider web, loomed in the distance. Its pulsating energy field, visible as a shimmering aurora borealis-like phenomenon, lit up the night sky. This was the nerve center of the initiative's control, the hub of Project Horizon, their ambition to achieve global neural synchronization. The air crackled with ley-line energy, an ethereal hum rising to a crescendo as arcs of shimmering light danced along the fractured ground. Buildings nearest the ley-line pulses flickered with sporadic energy surges, while faint tendrils of energy slithered across surfaces like spectral serpents. Some soldiers winced at the force pressing against their chests, whispering prayers or clutching talismans as if warding off something ancient and malevolent. She raised her comm unit to her lips. "Strike Team Alpha, report." A voice crackled through the static. "Alpha in position. Awaiting orders. Execute Phase 1. Disable the energy shield. We're going in." Outro Extra. Declassified Resistance After Action Report. Operation Final Stand. Berlin Neural Hub Date. July 2, 2058. Classification. Top Secret Assessment. Operation Final Stand. Berlin Neural Hub was a resounding success. The initiative's control over the neural hub has been neutralized. Project Horizon has been disrupted, and the initiative's command and control network has been severely crippled. Key objectives achieved. The neural hub's energy shield was successfully disabled, allowing resistance forces to penetrate the facility's defenses. The primary synchronization matrix was destroyed, disrupting Project Horizon and preventing the initiative from achieving global neural control. Commandant Elias Richter was neutralized, though his body was never recovered, sparking fears of his escape or something far stranger, a legacy that refuses to die. Strategic implications. The neutralization of the Berlin Neural Hub represents a major victory for the resistance, significantly weakening the initiative's control over Europe. The disruption of Project Horizon has dealt a significant blow to their ambitions for global dominance. Outro quote. "The battle for Berlin is won, but the war is far from over. We fight for freedom, for those who came before us, and those who will follow. Sacrifice marks our path, but liberation will be our destination." Anya Volkov, Resistance Broadcast, July 2, 2058. Chapter 20. The Khan's Gambit Opening Quote. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend, until they are no longer useful." Genghis Khan Clone, Intercepted Transmission, July 10, 2058. News article. The Kyoto Chronicle headline. Kaipan Emperor pledges alliance with resistance. Global skepticism high as motives remain unclear. Kyoto, Kaipan, July 8, 2058. In a stunning turn of events, the Genghis Khan clone, Emperor of Kaipan and a figure long feared for his ruthlessness and ambition, has publicly pledged his support to the resistance, vowing to aid in the fight against the Phoenix Initiative. The announcement, broadcast across global networks, was delivered from the Khan's palace in Kyoto, where he stood before a backdrop of the Kaipan flag and the glowing ley-line map that has become his empire's symbol. His words were measured, yet commanding. The initiative claims dominion over the earth, but they forget it is the people who grant power. Kaipan will not stand idle while tyranny reigns. The broadcast opened with sweeping aerial footage of Chippen's ley-line hubs, massive, glowing conduits of energy pulsing across cities, accentuating the Khan's mastery of technology. Interwoven were scenes of his elite soldiers training in precise formations, their dark uniforms gleaming under harsh lights as they synchronized their movements with ley-line-powered weaponry. Kaipan will rise to meet this challenge, the Khan proclaimed, his deep voice resonating with an unshakable authority. We will strike where tyranny weakens, and we will shatter the chains of oppression. Reactions across the globe were immediate and divided. In parts of Kaipan, fireworks lit up the night sky as citizens hailed the move as a triumph of leadership. Streets in Kyoto were filled with parades, banners depicting the Khan adorned with the ancient symbol of the dragon. Meanwhile, in resistance territories, cautious optimism mingled with whispered fears of betrayal. Critics pointed to the Khan's history of territorial expansion, warning that his aid might come with a heavy price. Dr. Sophia Lin, a renowned historian, offered a sharp critique during a global broadcast panel. The Khan does not act out of altruism. This alliance is a chess move, not an act of goodwill. Every empire begins with noble promises, but what follows is conquest. The resistance must tread carefully. In Kaipan itself, a striking mural in central Kyoto has already captured the unease felt by many. The artwork depicts a fearsome dragon coiling around a fractured globe, its jagged claws sinking into continents while flames erupt from its open mouth, engulfing faded cities. The dragon's scales shimmer with an unnatural iridescence, painstakingly rendered to catch the shifting light, giving the illusion of movement, as though it writhed with life. Beneath it, bold red script reads, "The dragon feeds as the world burns." Locals whisper that the mural appeared overnight. Its message is much a condemnation as it is a warning. Despite the skepticism, resistance leaders cautiously welcomed the alliance. Greta Heller issued a statement praising the Khan's decision while emphasizing that the fight remains for global liberation, not conquest. "We accept help where it is offered," Heller said, "but we will never compromise our cause." International analysts remain divided. While some view the Khan as a decisive force capable of turning the tide, others fear his ambitions could destabilize the fragile balance of power. "It is no coincidence that the Khan moves now," one political commentator remarked. "His timing is impeccable. The initiative weakens, and he positions himself to shape what comes next. Whether the resistance can control that influence is another question entirely." Intro Extra. Excerpt from a Resistance Intelligence Report. Subject: Analysis of Khan's Alliance. Offer date: July 9, 2058. Classification: Top Secret Assessment. The Khan's offer of alliance presents both opportunities and risks for the resistance. His forces are well equipped and experienced in ley-line warfare, and his control over Chippen's resources could prove invaluable. However, his motives remain unclear. His history suggests a pragmatic approach to power, and his alliance may be contingent upon his own strategic interests. Key observations: the Khan's offer comes at a time when the initiative is weakened, but not defeated. His timing suggests an opportunistic move to exploit the current power vacuum. The Khan has expressed a desire to expand Chippen's influence, potentially seeking to absorb territories currently under initiative control. The Khan's mastery of ley-line technology could pose a threat to the resistance if the alliance were to sour. Recommendations: proceed with caution, establishing clear terms of engagement and safeguards against potential betrayal. Focus on short-term collaboration, limiting the scope of the alliance to specific objectives. Maintain vigilance and contingency plans in case the Khan's loyalty shifts. Narrative timestamp: Kyoto, Kaipan, July 10, 2058, 2 p.m. hours. The ancient city of Kyoto, a blend of serene temples and gleaming skyscrapers, pulsed with a nervous energy. Beneath the tranquility of meticulously manicured gardens and the rhythmic chants of Buddhist monks, a current of tension flowed. The Khan's alliance with the resistance, while celebrated by some as a sign of hope, had also sown seeds of uncertainty. The streets were bustling with activity, but the atmosphere was charged with a palpable unease. Soldiers, clad in the black and gold armor of the Khan's army, patrolled the streets, their eyes watchful, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. Whispers of the Khan's true intentions rippled through the crowds, mixing with the sounds of commerce and the clatter of rickshaws. Journal entry: Aiko Sato, Resistance Liaison to Kaipan. Date: July 10, 2058. Location: Kyoto, Kaipan. The Khan's palace is a fortress of contradictions. Ancient tapestries and calligraphy scrolls adorn the walls, juxtaposed with holographic displays and banks of computers that hum with the energy of ley-line technology. The air is thick with incense, but beneath it, I detect the metallic tang of ozone, a faint reminder of the power that courses through this place. The Khan himself is an enigma. He speaks of honor and loyalty, yet his eyes hold a calculating glint. When he listens, he does so in absolute stillness, his gaze pinning you as though dissecting every word, every twitch, every breath. He waits a beat longer than necessary, his gaze narrowing slightly, as though dissecting her words and the intentions behind them. A fingertip taps rhythmically against the armrest of his throne, the subtle movement betraying the wheels turning in his mind, a predator quietly considering whether the prey before him is ally or meal. There's a patience about him, a predator's patience. He quotes ancient proverbs, yet his strategies are ruthlessly modern. I am here as a bridge between our worlds, but I cannot shake the feeling that I am walking on thin ice. His support is crucial, but can we truly trust him? Outro quote. We walk a tightrope, balancing the need for allies with the dangers of their ambition. The Khan's support may be our salvation, or it may be our undoing. Only time will tell which path he chooses to follow. Anya Volkov, Resistance High Command Meeting, July 16, 2058. Chapter 21, Shadows of the Phoenix. Opening quote. The greatest enemy of truth is not falsehood, but indifference. Greta Heller, Resistance Dispatches, 2040 news article. The Nordic Times headline, Nordic Alliance splintered, Queen Christina disappears as loyalist divisions emerge. Oslo, Norway, July 17, 2058. The Nordic Alliance, long considered a bastion of neutrality and stability, has fractured, sending shockwaves across the global geopolitical landscape. Queen Christina of Sweden, the alliance's figurehead and a respected voice for diplomacy, has mysteriously vanished amidst the turmoil. Reports suggest growing rifts within the alliance over its stance toward the resistance and the Khan's alliance. The alliance's once united front now splinters into factions: the neutralists, led by Leif Erikson, who advocate for disengagement from the conflict, and the loyalists, inspired by an emerging figure known only as the Valkyrie, who calls for decisive alignment with the resistance to combat the initiative's remnants. Eyewitness accounts claim sightings of pro-Valkyrie graffiti appearing across cities. Phrases like "choose a side," or "be conquered," and "the Valkyrie rises." Queen Christina's disappearance has left a power vacuum, with whispers of betrayal, abduction, and conspiracy swirling as the streets grow restless. Intro Extra. Excerpt from a Resistance Intelligence Report. Subject: Nordic Alliance fragmentation, implications and opportunities. Date: July 18, 2058. Classification: Eyes-only assessment. The alliance's fragmentation represents a shift in the global balance of power. Its technology, resources, and strategic territories are now vulnerable. Queen Christina's disappearance has destabilized leadership, creating an opportunity for initiative infiltration or resistance outrage. Key observations: Factional division. The neutralists, led by Leif Erikson, push for disengagement, while the loyalists, under the Valkyrie, support resistance alignment. Technological assets. The alliance's advanced cyber warfare tools and ley-line energy technology are critical assets. Queen's disappearance. Rumors range from voluntary exile to abduction orchestrated by initiative sympathizers or internal rivals. Recommendations: 1. Engage with loyalist factions and secure their allegiance. 2. Investigate Christina's disappearance as a top priority. 3. Contain potential neutralist outreach to the initiative. Narrative timestamp: Oslo, Norway, July 20, 2058, 9 p.m. hours. The streets of Oslo were unrecognizable. The hushed silence of Nordic neutrality had been replaced with roving patrols of armed soldiers, their faces hidden beneath matte visors. The city crackled with unrest, graffiti marring pristine marble walls, slogans daubed in bold red strokes: "The Valkyrie watches," "Fight or fall," and "Where is the Queen?" Greta Heller watched the city from the shadows of a crumbling safe house on the outskirts. The flickering lamplight cast jagged reflections of the resistance operatives crowded around her. In the background, the hum of surveillance drones echoed like distant wasps. "How far have we fallen?" Greta murmured. The city had once been a symbol of balance, of sanity in a world teetering on chaos. Now, Oslo felt poised to explode. Journal entry: Greta Heller, personal log. Date: July 20, 2058. Location: Resistance Safe House, Stockholm. The alliance was supposed to be the linchpin of our strategy, a stable voice of reason. Now it's cracking like thin ice beneath the weight of fear and ambition. Leif Erikson preaches caution, neutrality, but his cowardice will doom them. The loyalists follow the Valkyrie, a shadowy figure who rises like fire from the ashes. They believe in her. I envy their conviction. And then there's Christina. Where is she? If she's been taken, the initiative holds another dagger to our throats. If she's in hiding, what does she know that we don't? Her disappearance is more than a symbol, it's a warning. We must act. We must find Christina and rally the Alliance before the shadow swallows them whole. Narrative. Inside the shattered grandeur of the royal palace, Leif Erikson sat opposite Crown Prince Magnus, his nephew, in a meeting cloaked with tension. The chamber's marble pillars were silent witnesses to the deepening cracks within their nation. You let this happen, uncle, Magnus hissed, pacing before an ornate tapestry of their Viking ancestors. His face, usually a mask of princely calm, twisted with barely contained rage. The resistance, the Valkyrie, they're poisoning the people. Mother is gone. The alliance is unraveling. And you've done nothing but whisper of caution. Leif's icy composure held. And what would you have me do? March into a war we cannot win? Align with fanatics who light cities ablaze? He met Magnus' glare with a stern calmness. The resistance offers chaos disguised as salvation. The initiative promises control masked as progress. Neutrality keeps us from being consumed. Neutrality is cowardice, Magnus spat. The people chant her name. The Valkyrie. They believe in her because you give them nothing to believe in. A sharp knock echoed through the chamber. A soldier entered, bowing stiffly. Your Grace, another pro-Valkyrie demonstration has begun. It's spreading across the lower quarter. Magnus turned back to his uncle, his expression dark. Indifference won't save us, uncle. If you won't act, others will. Narrative. The resistance moved through the city like whispers on the wind. Greta and Anya infiltrated Oslo with Astrid Erikson guiding them, Leif's daughter, a woman torn between her family's name and the Valkyrie's fire. I can't change my father's mind, Astrid admitted as they crouched behind a convoy. The shadows hid them from prowling soldiers. But I can show you where the loyalists meet, where the Valkyrie plans her next move. Greta studied Astrid, seeing the conflict writ plain on her face. You believe in her, don't you? Astrid hesitated, then nodded. She gives us something my father can't, hope. Then let's meet the woman who inspires a fractured nation, Greta said grimly. Outro extra. Excerpt from Resistance Communication, intercepted transmission date, July 22, 2058 sender, unknown loyalist commander recipient, the Valkyrie content, the neutralists tighten their grip. Magnus stirs anger in the young. The resistance reaches for us. What is your will? Outro quote. In times of collapse, hope is both a weapon and a target. Wield it wisely, the Valkyrie, Loyalist Speech, Oslo, 2058. Bonus Chapter 7. The Valkyrie's Gambit opening quote, the greatest weapon against tyranny is not the sword, but the will to resist. Astrid Erikson, Nordic Alliance Rebel Transmissions, 2058. Big News article. The Global Herald headline, Nordic Alliance erupts in civil war, Valkyrie's rebellion challenges neutrality, shakes global power dynamics. Stockholm, Sweden, August 1, 2058. The Nordic Alliance, once a symbol of stability and neutrality, has descended into a bloody civil war. A faction led by Astrid Erikson, known as the Valkyrie, has launched a daring rebellion against the ruling council, accusing them of corruption, cowardice, and complicity with remnants of the Phoenix Initiative. The uprising has gained international attention, as Astrid's defiant broadcasts go viral, rallying support not just across Scandinavia but among youth and dissidents worldwide. Astrid Eriksson, charismatic and resolute, has emerged as a cultural. Her speeches, laced with poetic idealism and fierce pragmatism, have inspired countless young activists and soldiers to join the rebellion. Analysts speculate that her growing international following could push the global power balance into uncharted territory. While many nations remain cautious, her viral movement is being compared to past revolutionary leaders who reshaped the course of history. Extra 1. Nordic Alliance emergency broadcast, intercepted and decoded by resistance intelligence. Speaker, Leif Erikson, Prime Minister of the Nordic Alliance. Date, August 1, 2058. Content, citizens of the Nordic Alliance, a grave threat has emerged from within our own ranks. A faction led by my own daughter, Astrid, has betrayed our trust and launched a violent insurrection. Their claims of righteousness are a facade, fueled by foreign influence and reckless idealism. Their rebellion drags us toward ruin, threatening the peace and stability we have so carefully preserved. Extra 2. Valkyrie's Rebellion Manifesto, broadcast across encrypted resistance channels. Speaker, Astrid Eriksson, leader of the Valkyrie Rebellion. Date, August 1, 2058. Content, the walls of neutrality cannot protect us anymore. Our fathers and mothers believe silence keeps us safe, but silence is surrender. I will not allow our children to inherit a future shaped by tyranny, complacency, or fear. The Phoenix Initiative still casts its shadow across this world. I will tear that shadow apart, piece by piece. Together, we will forge a future worthy of our ideals. For freedom. For justice. For the Valkyrie. Extra 3. Pop Culture Spotlight, Virtual Revolution, The Pharaoh's Mind Review, released August 5, 2058. Developer, VR Vision Studios, approved by Ramses II. Experience the glory of ancient Egypt at its zenith, designed by none other than Ramses II himself. In Virtual Revolution, The Pharaoh's Mind, players are transported into a fully immersive simulation of life at the height of Ramses' empire. Whether serving as a builder on the Great Pyramid, a scholar in Alexandria, or a warrior in Ramses' conquests, the game promises unmatched realism and historical authenticity. Critics have noted the unsettling propaganda undertones, subtly glorifying Ramses' reign and his vision of leadership. However, this hasn't stopped millions of players globally from embracing the experience. Player review highlight: it's like stepping into a legend. The scale, the beauty, the ambition, but there's something haunting about knowing the game comes from Ramses' mind himself. It makes you wonder what's real and what's his fantasy. Extra 4. Resistance Science Report, The Genetic Edge, Life and Training of the Clones. Date, August 7, 2058. Compiled by Dr. Linear Harker, Resistance Intelligence Science Division. Report Summary: the elite clones dominating modern geopolitics, Ramses II, Genghis Khan, and others, owe their extended lifespans and enhanced abilities to advanced gene therapies and neural integration technologies developed by the initiative. Longevity and health: clones undergo periodic genetic refreshments, which repair cellular degradation and enhance regenerative capabilities. While not immortal, they are functionally resistant to aging and most diseases. Neural upload training: each clone is fitted with onboard AI processors capable of high-speed information uploads. Physical combat, strategic simulations, and political manipulation techniques are reinforced through VR immersion. Simulation hierarchies: high-ranking clones access VR worlds tailored to their desires, such as Ramses' Egypt at its height. Those deemed less effective are relegated to faction-approved simulations, endlessly cycling battles, servitude, or propaganda loops that reinforce their loyalty. Risks: while clones are physically formidable, their mental dependency on VR immersion has made them vulnerable to psychological manipulation, targeted sensory disruptions, and high-risk operations aimed at severing their neural integration. Expanded Journal Entry, Journal of Astrid Eriksson. Entry date, August 15, 2058. Location, secret rebel base. Northern Sweden. The fires of rebellion burn hot and bright, but the cold of doubt lingers in the quiet moments. Tonight, as I watched the young recruits practice with weapons far too heavy for their shoulders, I remembered sitting at my father's knee as he read from the Eddas. I was his little warrior, his shining hope for the future, and now I am his enemy. He cannot see the corruption that infects his council, the poison dripping into the Nordic Alliance initiative remnants. They whisper peace, but they crave power. Their wolves wear sheep's clothing, and I have been forced to tear the disguise away. But is it enough? They call me the Valkyrie, and I hear their songs in the streets, an anthem of revolution, of defiance. My face has gone viral, my words spread across borders. Kids in Spain, students in Texas, workers in Zion, they send me messages of hope, of solidarity. It humbles me. It terrifies me. I have become a symbol. But symbols are fragile, easily shattered. I must be more. I must be a sword, a shield, a beacon. For them. For the future. For the Valkyrie. Outro quote: when the fires of rebellion fade and the dust settles, it is not the victories that linger but the choices we made to light that fire. The courage to rise, the will to fight, and the vision to see beyond the battle, that is how we reshape the world. Astrid Eriksson, Address to the Valkyrie Rebellion, August 20, 2058. Chapter 22. A New Dawn. Opening quote: the world is a blank canvas. The war is over, but the real battle, the struggle to rebuild, to heal, to forgive, has just begun. Greta Heller, Resistance Transmissions, August 16, 2042. News article. Headline: World leaders gather to chart a new course. Hope and uncertainty as humanity rebuilds from ashes of conflict. Global Broadcast Network, or GBN, Geneva, Switzerland, September 15, 2042. World leaders have assembled in Geneva to begin the arduous task of rebuilding a world shattered by the conflict with the Phoenix Initiative. The mood is a blend of cautious optimism and apprehension as the challenges of re-establishing trust, managing the legacy of advanced technology, and preventing future conflicts are daunting. The summit, dubbed the Geneva Accords, seeks to establish a new global order based on shared responsibility, sustainable development, and the preservation of human rights. Intro Extra. Excerpt from the opening speech by UN Secretary-General Anya Sharma at the Geneva Conference. We gather here today not as victors or vanquished, but as survivors. The shadow of the Phoenix Initiative has lifted, but its legacy remains. The scars of conflict run deep, and the wounds of betrayal still sting. But even in the ashes, hope flickers. The human spirit, battered but unbowed, yearns for a new dawn. The task before us is immense, to rebuild not just our cities and infrastructure but also the very fabric of trust that binds us together. We must confront the legacy of unchecked ambition, the seductive allure of technological power that nearly led to our undoing. We must learn from the mistakes of the past, forge new paths toward cooperation, and ensure that the future we build is one where peace, justice, and human dignity prevail. Narrative timestamp: September 16, 2042, Geneva, Switzerland. Geneva buzzed with a frenetic energy, a chaotic symphony of languages and agendas. Diplomats huddled in tense negotiations, their words carefully chosen, their smiles strained. Journalists, hungry for any scrap of information, swarmed through the corridors, their cameras flashing, their questions relentless. The weight of the world seemed to press down on the city, a palpable tension hanging in the air. Journal entry, excerpt from Sofia Alvarez's personal journal. Date: September 16, 2042. Location: Geneva Conference Center. I look around this room, at the faces of presidents and prime ministers, diplomats and activists, and I see exhaustion etched deep into their features. The relief of the initiative's defeat is palpable, but beneath it lies a weariness, a burden of grief and uncertainty. We've won the war, but the peace feels fragile, a delicate seedling struggling to take root in soil poisoned by decades of Sofia Alvarez, weary but resolute, surveyed the scene before her. The Geneva Conference Center, a monument to diplomacy and international cooperation, now served as the battleground for a new kind of conflict, the struggle to rebuild a world fractured by the Phoenix Initiative's ambition. The air hummed with a nervous energy, a blend of hope and trepidation. The fall of the initiative had been swift and brutal, a testament to the resistance's tenacity and the global backlash against the organization's tyrannical overreach. The world had witnessed the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition, the horrors inflicted in the pursuit of technological supremacy. The Vienna incident, the catastrophic energy surges that had torn through Europe, stood as a stark reminder of the fragility of civilization and the dangers of tampering with forces beyond human comprehension. The resistance had seen victory in Berlin, but Sofia knew their struggles were far from over. Across the shattered continents, leaders vied for influence, corporations sought to exploit ley-line technologies, and remnants of the initiative lurked in the shadows. She watched the negotiators in the hall, their voices raised in heated debate over reparations, energy distribution, and territorial boundaries. Some spoke of unity, others of sovereignty, all with their own motives cloaked in words of peace. Scene expansion. Sofia's mind drifted to the survivors she had seen while traveling through the ruins of Warsaw. Families living in makeshift shelters where buildings once stood tall. Children playing with shards of broken glass and fragments of drones, turning the wreckage of war into toys. What do we owe them? She thought. Her hand unconsciously brushed the edge of her worn leather notebook, its pages filled with plans, speeches, and sketches of a world Greta Heller had carried a journal just like this, jotting down her dreams for a better world. Sofia vowed she would carry on that legacy. An aide approached, breaking her reverie. Ms. Alvarez, the Eastern Bloc delegates are calling for your presence. They refuse to support the accords unless ley-line oversight is addressed. Sofia sighed, rising to her feet. One step at a time, she thought, steeling herself. The fate of the world depended on patience, compromise, and the willingness to see beyond the scars of war. Outro extra. Excerpt from Klaus Heller's personal journal entry date, December 1, 2042. The world has condemned the initiative, labeling them monsters, tyrants, architects of a dystopian future. And yet, they were once dreamers, idealists, scientists who believed they held the key to a better world. How did we stray so far from the path? How did our pursuit of progress become a weapon of oppression? History will judge us, as it always does. But I have learned this much: power without restraint is a fire that consumes everything, including those who wield it. Perhaps the greatest lesson is not how to wield power, but how to let it go. Outro quote. The Phoenix Initiative sought to control the future. But the future is not a destination, it's a choice. And we choose to build a future where humanity is not defined by its past, but by its potential. Sofia Alvarez, Address to the Global Unity Summit, 2040. Chapter 23, Embers of the Phoenix. Opening quote. Victory is a fleeting illusion. Power, like a phoenix, rises from the ashes of its own destruction, seeking new forms, new vessels, new ways to perpetuate its reign. Klaus Heller, Reflections on the Legacy of the Phoenix Initiative, 2043 news article. Headline: Global Unity Summit concludes, accords signed, but challenges remain as factions jockey for position. Global Broadcast Network, or GBN, Geneva, Switzerland. October 1, 2042. The Global Unity Summit has concluded with the signing of a landmark agreement aimed at rebuilding the world after the collapse of the Phoenix Initiative. The Geneva Accords, as they are known, outline a framework for international cooperation, disarmament, and the ethical use of ley-line technology. However, despite the outward show of unity, tensions simmer beneath the surface as various factions, empowered by the initiative's legacy, jostle for power and influence. Intro Extra. Excerpt from the closing address by UN Secretary-General Anya Sharma at the Global Unity Summit. We stand at a crossroads, a pivotal moment in human history. The shadow of tyranny has lifted, but the path ahead is fraught with uncertainty. The Geneva Accords represent a beacon of hope, a testament to our collective desire for a world where peace and cooperation prevail. But the ink on these documents is not a guarantee of success. The real work begins now, in the hearts and minds of every individual, in the choices we make, in the actions we take. We must remain vigilant, for the embers of ambition still smolder, and the seductive whispers of power can easily lure us back into the darkness. Let us remember the sacrifices made, the lessons learned, and let us build a future worthy of the legacy we have inherited. A future where humanity thrives, not merely survives. Narrative timestamp, October 5, 2042, Resistance Safe House, Scottish Highlands. The wind howled across the desolate Scottish moors, a mournful symphony that echoed the somber mood within the Resistance Safe House. Rain lashed against the windows, a relentless assault that mirrored the turmoil brewing beneath the fragile veneer of peace. The world, wounded but defiant, was struggling to rise from the ashes of the Phoenix Initiative's reign. The Geneva Accords, signed just days ago, offered a glimmer of hope, a framework for a new global order based on cooperation and mutual respect. But shadows lingered, whispers of doubt and suspicion that threatened to unravel the delicate tapestry of unity. Journal entry, excerpt from Greta Heller's personal journal, recovered posthumously and preserved within the Resistance archives. The silence is The constant hum of urgency that defined our lives for so long has been replaced by an eerie quiet. We won. The initiative is no more. Yet, victory feels hollow, a bittersweet ache in the absence of those who fell along the way. Sofia throws herself into the rebuilding efforts, tirelessly navigating the treacherous currents of international politics. Klaus, haunted by his role in the initiative's rise, seeks solace in his research, desperately trying to find ways to undo the damage he helped inflict. And I find myself adrift. The purpose that drove me, the fire that fueled my every action, flickers like a dying ember. What is a revolutionary without a revolution? A leader without a cause? Narrative, Greta Heller, her heart heavy with a grief she couldn't articulate, stared out at the storm-ravaged landscape. The Scottish Highlands, a place of stark beauty and unforgiving nature, had become her sanctuary, a refuge from the ghosts that haunted her waking moments. The victory over the Phoenix Initiative, a triumph she had dedicated her life to achieving, had left her feeling strangely empty, her purpose seemingly extinguished. The world was rebuilding, but the pieces didn't fit. The Geneva Accords, a testament to Sofia's diplomatic prowess, offered a framework for peace, but the foundations were shaky, built on a bedrock of suspicion and the lingering threat of resurfacing ambition. Ramses II, his ego inflated by his mastery of ley-line energy, had retreated to his self-proclaimed Kingdom of Zion, a theocratic state built on the ruins of ancient Jerusalem. His pronouncements of divine right and his blatant disregard for the Geneva Accords sent a chilling message to the world. The thirst for power, for absolute control, was far from Napoleon. His ambitions reignited by the chaos of the initiative's collapse, had withdrawn his forces to Corsica, the island of his birth, where he was reportedly amassing a new army, forged from the remnants of the initiative's shattered legions and fueled by whispers of a resurgent French empire. And then there were the corporations, lurking in the shadows, their tendrils reaching into every corner of the globe. Google and Tesla Dynamics, once allies in the fight against the initiative, now revealed their true colors, their hunger for control masked by philanthropic facades and promises of technological progress. Project Shadow Hand, their scheme to manipulate the ley-line network for their own gain, was a stark reminder that the enemies of freedom wore many masks. Greta felt a growing unease, a sense of impending danger that she couldn't shake off. The embers of the Phoenix Initiative's ambition hadn't been extinguished, they were smoldering, waiting for the right moment to burst into flames. I look out at the world, at the fragile peace taking root amidst the ruins, and I wonder, have we truly vanquished the shadows, or have we simply pushed them back into the corners, waiting for the moment to strike again? She wrote in her journal, her words echoing the growing unease within her soul. Klaus Heller, his face etched with lines of weariness and regret, emerged from his makeshift laboratory, his eyes filled with a haunted look that Greta knew all too well. He had dedicated himself to unraveling the secrets of the Lazarus Protocol, desperately seeking a way to reverse its effects, to undo the damage he had inflicted on the world. But the science was complex, the ethics even more so, and every breakthrough seemed to lead to a new moral quandary. Sofia Alvarez maintained the fragile peace brokered by the Geneva Accords. She shuttled between capitals, negotiated treaties, mediated disputes, her every action a tightrope walk on the razor's edge of global stability. But she, too, felt the weight of the initiative's legacy, the specter of their ambition haunting every negotiation, every compromise. Excerpt from a resistance intelligence report, marked highly sensitive and addressed to Sofia Alvarez. Subject: Emerging threats and potential flashpoints. A post-initiative assessment date, October 10, 2042. Summary: The collapse of the Phoenix Initiative has created a power vacuum, leading to the emergence of multiple factions vying for control. The following assessment outlines the key threats and potential flashpoints that require immediate attention. 1. Resurgent authoritarianism. Ramses II's theocratic regime in Zion and Napoleon Bonaparte's growing influence in Europe represent a resurgence of authoritarianism, fueled by charismatic leadership and advanced technology. 2. Ley-line instability. Ley-line disputes are escalating along contested borders, and the potential for catastrophic energy surges remains high. Just last week, a surge near the Texas CFS border caused a 12-hour blackout across multiple territories, crippling essential systems and triggering panic among civilians. Reports from the Scottish Highlands indicate unexplained energy bursts destabilizing nearby infrastructure, with entire fields of crops left charred overnight. Such events serve as grim reminders of how volatile ley-line energy can be when manipulated or left unchecked. 3. Corporate shadow hand. Google and Tesla Dynamics are manipulating ley-line technology for their own gain, posing significant global risks. 4. Ideological extremism. Initiative ideologies continue to spread, fueling fanaticism and violent extremism. 5. Proliferation of technology. Advanced technologies, including cloning and AI-powered weaponry, are spreading into dangerous hands. Recommendations: Strengthen international cooperation to enforce the Geneva Accords. Monitor ley-line activity globally. Implement strict regulations on advanced technology. Launch counterpropaganda to expose disinformation and promote. Hope is a fragile thing, easily extinguished by the winds of fear and the embers of ambition. We must guard it fiercely, nurture it with courage and compassion, and never allow the shadows to consume it. Sofia Alvarez, addressed to the Global Unity Summit, 2043. Chapter 24, Echoes of Betrayal. Opening quote: Trust is the rarest commodity in the shadow of tyranny. Freya Lang, Meditations in Shadow, 2029 news article. The Dallas Dispatch headline: Texas CFS border erupts in violence. Initiative involvement suspected as peace talks collapse. Dallas, Texas, September 20, 2044. The fragile peace between the Republic of Texas and the Confederated Free States, CFS, has shattered, as a series of violent skirmishes have erupted along their heavily fortified border near the wild wastes. The escalating conflict has dashed hopes for a negotiated settlement to the long-standing dispute over control of vital ley-line nodes in the region. Eyewitness accounts and intercepted communications suggest the involvement of covert operatives utilizing advanced technology consistent with remnants of the Phoenix Initiative. Reports describe drones capable of cloaking their movements, delivering precision strikes undetectable by conventional radar, and weaponized energy fields that disintegrate physical barriers in seconds. Survivors speak of an eerie, shimmering blue light preceding attacks, a hallmark of initiative-modified ley-line technology. The violence has sparked widespread panic and fueled accusations of betrayal on both sides, jeopardizing the already tenuous stability of the region. The international community is calling for an immediate ceasefire and an independent investigation into the alleged initiative involvement. Narrative timestamp, October 3, 2044, Resistance Safe House, ruins of San Antonio. Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight filtering through the shattered roof of the abandoned cathedral. Anya Volkov, her face grim, traced the glowing lines of the ley-line map projected onto the dusty floor. Around her, the remnants of the Texan resistance huddled, their faces etched with exhaustion and a growing sense of "They're playing us," Anya said, her voice barely a whisper. "The initiative is using the same tactics they used in Europe, in Asia, in every corner of the world where they've sought to consolidate their power." She pointed to the glowing hotspots on the map, ley-line nodes, where skirmishes had erupted over the past week. The Texas CFS conflict, it's a textbook example of their tactics. Sow discord, fan the flames of hatred, and watch as nations tear themselves apart. And the ley lines, they are the prize, the key to controlling not just energy, but the very fabric of reality. Her words settled over the room like a lead weight. For years, the resistance had fought wars against shadows, against unseen hands pulling strings in boardrooms, bunkers, and faraway citadels. This war, like those before it, was not about borders or resources. It was about control of the future, of the power that pulsed beneath their. "We're fighting a war on multiple fronts," Anya continued, looking at each face in turn. "A war against their technology, a war against their propaganda, a war against the darkness that seeks to consume us all. But our greatest enemy is ourselves, our doubts, our divisions, our fear. We can't afford to be fractured. We must stand together, united in our purpose, unwavering in our resolve. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance." The Texan resistance, once a formidable force, had been decimated by King Adler's assassination and the subsequent power struggle that had engulfed the Republic. The noble houses, once united under Adler's banner, were now fractured, their loyalties divided, their ambitions fueled by a desperate scramble for power. The Texan people, caught in the crossfire, were weary of war, disillusioned by the promises of their leaders, and desperate for a semblance of peace. The Shadow Accord, a glimmer of hope in a world shrouded in darkness, seemed a distant dream, a fragile promise shattered by the echoes of. The ley lines, once symbols of prosperity, now loomed as harbingers of destruction, threatening to tear Texas apart from within. Intro Extra, excerpt from a resistance communication intercepted by the Nordic Alliance sender, Greta Heller recipient, Anya Volkov location, unknown date, October 3, 2040 for classification. Highly confidential. We've made contact with key figures within the Texan resistance movement. Their leader, Duke Alexander Hawthorne, is a shrewd strategist, a man who understands the dangers of unchecked ambition. He opposes Adler's aggressive stance towards the CFS and sees the initiative's involvement as a threat to Texan sovereignty. Hawthorne believes that a united Texas is the best defense against the initiative's encroaching influence. He seeks to establish a coalition of noble houses and resistance cells to counter Adler's increasingly erratic rule and to negotiate a lasting peace with the CF. To facilitate dialogue, to bridge the divide between these factions, and to forge a united front against the initiative remnants. "We must convince them that their true enemy is not each other, but the ghosts of the past that seek to control their future." Narrative timestamp, August 12, 2044. Royal Palace, Austin, Texas. The opulent ballroom of the Royal Palace in Austin, Texas, was a sea of restless energy. The air, thick with the scent of expensive perfume and simmering resentment, crackled with unspoken tension. Beneath the glittering chandeliers and the facade of Texan hospitality, a storm was brewing, a rebellion simmering just below the surface of polite society. Journal entry, King William Adler date, August 12, 2040. For the vipers in my own court hiss their discontent, their loyalty is thin as the summer silk they drape themselves in. Some avoid my gaze, fanning themselves with gilded handkerchiefs while others exchange furtive glances, their expressions a mix of disdain and anticipation. A lord near the edge of the crowd adjusts his cuffs with deliberate calm, but the tightness in his jaw betrays his unease. They accuse me of recklessness, of warmongering, yet they fail to grasp the precariousness of our position. The CFS encroaches upon our borders, their claims to the wild wastes growing bolder with each passing day. The ley lines, the lifeblood of our nation, pulse with an energy that can sustain us or destroy us, and those who control them hold the fate of Texas in their hands. I will not yield to their demands. I will not surrender the hard-won unity of Texas to appease their petty ambitions. I will fight for the future of our nation, even if it means turning against those who claim to be my allies. Outro Extra. Excerpt from a resistance strategy memo recovered during a raid on an initiative safe house in Houston. Subject: Exploiting Texan Internal Divisions. Date: August 14, 2040. For classification: Top Secret Assessment. The growing rift between King Adler and the Texan nobility presents a unique opportunity for the resistance. By discreetly supporting both sides of the conflict, we can further exacerbate their divisions, weakening Adler's authority and creating a window of opportunity to seize control of key ley line nodes in the wild wastes. Recommendations: Provide intelligence and logistical support to Duke Hawthorne's faction, helping them to solidify their position and challenge Adler's rule. Simultaneously leak information to Adler's loyalists that suggests Hawthorne is colluding with the CFS, further fueling distrust and paranoia. Deploy covert operatives to the wild wastes to monitor ley line activity and prepare for a strategic intervention when the time. Objective: To create a power vacuum in Texas that allows the resistance to establish a foothold in the region and gain control of vital ley line resources. Outro quote: A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. In the cracks of their discord, we will find our opportunity to strike. Greta Heller, Resistance Field Journal, 2040. For bonus Chapter 8, Echoes of the Past. Opening quote: History, though distant, often finds a way to walk among us again. Unknown Scholar, Resistance Archives, 2050. Big News article. Headline: Ghost signals detected near former initiative sites. Experts baffled as global ley line network exhibits anomalous activity. Global, June 15, 2042, a series of unexplained energy readings have been detected near several decommissioned Phoenix Initiative research facilities, sparking concern and confusion among scientists and global security experts. These anomalies, dubbed ghost signals due to their erratic nature and proximity to sites associated with the fallen organization, are baffling researchers. The signals, characterized by fluctuating energy spikes and localized electromagnetic disturbances, have prompted the United Nations Ley Line Research Task Force to initiate an urgent investigation. Initial reports indicate that the fluctuations pose no immediate threat to populated areas, but recent incidents near the Bavarian Alps suggest otherwise. Witnesses described sudden energy surges disrupting local power grids and causing electronic devices to malfunction. In Oslo, a ley line surge briefly knocked out citywide communications, leaving officials scrambling to determine the cause. These events raise questions about the stability of the ley line network and whether the ghost signals are precursors to a larger, uncontrolled release of energy. Speculation runs rampant, with some experts suggesting residual energy from the initiative's experiments, while others propose the possibility of unforeseen consequences related to the Earth's natural energy system. Extra 1. Phoenix Initiative Internal Memo. Date: June 6, 2042. From Elias Richter to High Command Operatives. Classification: Ultra Top Secret. Subject: Contingency Protocols. Ramses Defiance. Content: Ramses's declaration of independence represents a significant threat to the initiative's strategic objectives. His control over key ley line nodes and his influence within certain factions necessitate immediate action to contain his ambitions and prevent further destabilization. Immediate directives: Isolate Zion. Sever all communication channels with Zion-controlled territories. Implement a strict information blackout to prevent Ramses from spreading his message of rebellion. Discredit Ramses. Initiate a comprehensive propaganda campaign to portray Ramses as a power-hungry despot seeking to destabilize the world order. Emphasize his historical brutality and tyrannical rule as a warning against his ambition. Exploit internal divisions. Identify and exploit any potential weaknesses or divisions within Zion's leadership structure. Foster dissent and sow discord to weaken Ramses's hold on power by deploying misinformation campaigns tailored to key Zion leaders. Use false communications to create suspicion between trusted advisors and plant fabricated reports of betrayals or hidden agendas. Simultaneously, Infiltrate Zion's supply lines with sleeper agents who can sabotage key logistical operations and exacerbate internal frustrations. Target Ramses' most vocal supporters with propaganda that highlights his historical tyranny, positioning them as collaborators with his authoritarian ambitions. Activate contingency protocols. Prepare for the activation of prepositioned sleeper agents and sabotage units within Zion-controlled territories. Await further instructions for deployment. Ley-line disruption. Research and develop methods to disrupt ley-line energy flow to Zion-controlled regions. The goal is to weaken their technological capabilities and limit their ability to project power. Extra 2. Resistance Intelligence Report Subject. Analysis of Initiative Factional Dynamics. Date: April 15, 2042. Classification: High Priority. Key Observations: The emergence of independent factions within the Phoenix Initiative, led by resurrected historical figures, poses a significant threat to global stability. Ramses II, leading the Zion faction, exhibits a growing disregard for the initiative's central command structure. His mastery of ley-line energy and his charismatic leadership have solidified his control over key territories in the Middle East. Other factions, including Napoleon Bonaparte's forces in Europe and Genghis Khan's control over Kaipan, are consolidating their power and pursuing their own agendas. Recommendations: Prioritize intelligence gathering on factional dynamics within the initiative. Identify key leaders, their motivations, and potential vulnerability. Explore opportunities to exploit divisions and rivalries between factions. Encourage defections and sow discord to weaken the initiative from within. Assess the potential for alliances with factions that share the Resistance's goals of dismantling the initiative and establishing a more just and equitable world order. Underscore 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 extra 3. Excerpt from The Watchmaker's Shadow, fragmented occult document, discovered amidst the ruins of a Dresden manor linked to the Nazi occult division. This enigmatic text predates the formation of the Phoenix Initiative. It speaks of harnessing the Earth's lifeblood, a network of energy now known as ley lines. Relevant passages: The Earth's veins run deep, carrying a power that can reshape the world. Those who control this power control destiny itself. But beware, for the Earth's lifeblood is not easily tamed. It demands respect, reverence, and a willingness to embrace the forces of chaos. The rituals must be performed with precision, the symbols aligned, the sacrifices made. Only then will the Earth's power reveal its secrets. Only then will the chosen few ascend to their rightful place as masters of the new world. Analysis: These passages provide a glimpse into the ideological underpinnings of the Phoenix Initiative, revealing how their blend of scientific ambition and occult beliefs shaped their earliest experiments. Their work began as cautious exploration, fusing advanced mathematical calculations with ritualistic precision to access and harness ley-line energy. Early tests often resulted in catastrophic failures, entire laboratories reduced to rubble, researchers lost to unexplained anomalies, and electromagnetic disruptions that rippled across entire cities. Survivors of these failures whispered of strange phenomena, shadows moving against the flow of light, voices emanating from cracks in reality, and symbols etched into surfaces where none had been. Signs: The initiative's leadership became increasingly consumed by their pursuit, convinced that the chaos was merely a barrier to be overcome, a test of their worthiness to unlock the Earth's hidden power. Their reckless experimentation with forces they did not fully comprehend ultimately led to their downfall, but the echoes of their hubris linger, a warning to those who would seek to manipulate the Earth's power for their own ends. Extra 4. Greta's Journal, Reflections on Hope Amidst Despair. Author: Greta Heller. Format: personal journal entries, capturing Greta's thoughts, emotions, and experiences as a resistance leader. Content: Entry date: June 17, 2042. The world is a symphony of chaos. The initiative's fall has unleashed a torrent of conflicting forces, each vying for control, each convinced they hold the key to the future. Ramses, with his delusions of godhood, seeks to impose his ancient tyranny upon the modern world. Napoleon, driven by his insatiable ambition, marches across Europe, forging alliances with those who share his thirst for power. Genghis Khan, the resurrected warlord, consolidates his grip on Kaipan, his armies poised to strike at any moment. And amidst this chaos, we, the resistance, struggle to hold on to the fragile hope that a better world is possible. We fight not for conquest, but for freedom, for the right of every human being to determine their own destiny. But the fight is far from over. We are the last line of defense against the ghosts of the past. Against tyrants reborn in a new age, wielding old ambitions with modern tools. It falls to us, to remind the world of what tyranny costs, to resist the allure of unchecked power, and to guard the future from those who would twist it for their own gain. The world must learn that our resolve will never falter, and our hope will never die. Outro quote: "We are not makers of history. We are made by history." Martin Luther King Jr. Epilogue: The Vision of the God King. Opening quote: "The past is but prologue, a foundation upon which we must build the empire of tomorrow." Ramses II, addressed to Zion Elite Circle, 2044 news article. Headline: Zion announces New Jerusalem project. Ramses II declares humanity's future lies in order and harmony. Global Broadcast Network, or GBN. Date: October 15, 2044. Zion, October 15, 2044. In a stunning and controversial announcement, Ramses II, self-proclaimed God King and ruler of Zion, unveiled his latest vision for humanity's future, the New Jerusalem project. Promising a utopia fueled by ley-line energy and precision-engineered order, Ramses described New Jerusalem as a beacon of stability in an uncertain world. This ambitious initiative proposes a city-state constructed entirely with ley-line integrated technology, where every need will be provided, and every element of society will function in harmony. Ramses' rhetoric mirrors the authoritarian ambitions of the fallen Phoenix Initiative, raising concerns over personal freedoms and unchecked technological power. Supporters, however, hail the God King's vision as a necessary step toward global recovery following decades of conflict and chaos. Independent analysts note the project's reliance on ley-line nodes may carry significant risks, given the energy network's instability since the initiative's collapse. Intro Extra, excerpt from Zion Elite Council meeting transcription, October 15, 2044. The world craves stability. History has shown that humanity falters without strong leadership. We must offer them paradise, not through their illusions of freedom, but through discipline and design. New Jerusalem will be that paradise. It will be their salvation. Ramses II narrative timestamp, location, personal VR chamber, the Pyramid Palace, Zion date, October 15, 2040. For the hum of ley-line powered machines filled the silence as Ramses II lowered himself onto the VR throne. A faint vibration rippled through the golden inlays embedded in the throne's frame as the neural interface activated, synchronizing with his consciousness. "Begin," he commanded. The world faded, dissolving into pure, golden light. Journal entry, author, Ramses II. Date, October 16, 2040. For I have seen my empire reborn. For centuries, humanity has squandered its potential, adrift in chaos and division. The initiative understood this. Their vision was flawed, but their ambition was righteous. I will succeed where they failed. Karnak, a resurrection of the past, reminds them of where they came from, of the greatness they once achieved under my reign. New Jerusalem, however, will show them where they must go. This will not be a city. It will be a world. A symphony of order, harmony, and divine precision. The skeptics call me tyrant, yet it is not tyranny I offer but salvation. They will resist at first, as they always do. But in time, they will see. And they will thank me. Narrative. The simulation burst to life around Ramses in an explosion of light and sound. Golden sands stretched infinitely beneath a sky that shimmered like molten sapphire. Pyramids, monolithic and eternal, rose from the horizon, their surfaces etched with hieroglyphics glowing faintly with ley energy. This was Karnak. Ramses strode through the desert, the familiar weight of his gold-adorned armor pressing against his chest. Around him, merchants praised him as the giver of life, priests bowed with reverence, and the echoes of chanting choruses resounded through the air. The Hall of Ascension awaited him, its towering columns casting colossal shadows over his path. Each surface was carved to immortalize his deeds: Ramses the builder, Ramses the warrior, Ramses the god. As he reached the apex of the hall, Ramses paused, inhaling deeply. Memories whispered through the sands. Scenes of ancient conquests flashed before his eyes, victories won, temples raised, empires forged from the sheer will of his leadership. They feared me then. They worshipped me. And they will again. Show me the future, Ramses said softly, and the world began to shift. The sands beneath him solidified into streets of polished obsidian. The pyramids gave way to translucent spires laced with veins of glowing energy. Karnak became New Jerusalem. The skyline shimmered in the evening light. At the heart of the city rose the Pyramid of Radiance, a structure so vast and otherworldly it seemed alive. Streets stretched outward from its base, perfectly symmetrical, radiating energy that pulsed through the city's infrastructure like blood through veins. Citizens moved in harmony, every motion purposeful, every system calculated to the finest. Ramses stood on the steps of the pyramid, gazing across his creation. His neural interface relayed data streams, population metrics, energy outputs, loyalty projections. Every detail perfect. Paradise. For a moment, he allowed himself to step among the simulated citizens. As he passed, they looked up in awe, their faces serene. Ramses studied them, men, women, children, all content, all unquestioning. The illusion was flawless. He watched a child kneel to touch the glowing ley vein embedded in the street, the energy coursing into his palm before dissolving into light. The boy turned to Ramses and smiled. "Thank you, my king." Ramses smiled back. This is their future. But a command called forth the darker vision. With a mere gesture, New Jerusalem fractured. Buildings crumbled, energy veins sputtered and roared violently, consuming the streets in flames. The citizens screamed, their harmony replaced with chaos. This is what they will choose if left to their own devices, Ramses. His golden armor reflected the destruction, his face unmoved. They must be guided. Controlled. It is the only way. Outro Extra, press release from Metasphere VR, October 12, 2044. Metasphere VR is proud to collaborate with Zion's visionary leadership to bring ancient Egypt's majesty to life with our cutting-edge simulation technology. The Karnak experience offers an unparalleled immersive journey into the heart of one of humanity's greatest civilizations. Explore the bustling streets of Karnak, witness grand temple processions, and stand in the shadow of the mighty Ramses II as history comes alive. Dive into a world of wonder, where past, present, and future collide. Outro quote: "Those who build golden cages often forget that prisons, no matter how beautiful, still have walls." Greta Heller, Final Resistance Broadcast, 2040. Afterward, the road to completing the Berlin legacy has been nothing short of an odyssey. The sheer scale of what we have achieved feels at times overwhelming. We did not merely write a series of books, we constructed a living, breathing world. A world that demanded structure, depth, and the kind of consistency only possible through rigorous, relentless iteration. The collaborative process we employed, from simulated author discussions to reader group workshops, proved to be both our greatest challenge and our most rewarding victory. There were days when entire sections of a chapter would be torn apart, reimagined, and stitched back together stronger than before. We pushed each other, questioned every line, every scene, every twist, ensuring the narrative remained true to its vision while evolving with every layer we uncovered. What sets this series apart is the method we use. We laying foundations of logic and lore before ever daring to build the larger structures of story. Entire encyclopedias of in-world material were created, documents on ley-line mechanics, character motivations, societal structures, and even evolving geopolitics. These materials, though unseen in their entirety, served as the invisible scaffolding that kept the narrative strong, detailed, and believable. The short stories and bonus chapters deserve special recognition as cornerstones of this creative endeavor. These pieces were born out of the desire to see beyond the central story, to flesh out the lives and struggles of the people who inhabit this fractured world. Crafting tales of forgotten cities, mysterious signals, and intimate moments of rebellion allowed us to create richer layers of emotional and cultural depth. But the process was not without its trials. There were moments when the sheer magnitude of details threatened to collapse under its own weight. Questions of consistency, pacing, and thematic resonance often led to painstaking rewrites. The team pored over chapters, dissected every word, and left no stone unturned in our pursuit of excellence. And yet, every struggle, every setback brought us closer to a final product we can be proud of, a series that is as intricate as it is gripping. Through it all, we celebrated our victories. The quiet satisfaction of a perfect line of dialogue. The triumph of a climactic moment landing just right. The joy of readers getting lost in the worlds we built, coming back to us with their theories, their questions, and their unwavering excitement. The Berlin Legacy is a product of creative obsession, a process that fused narrative ambition with a painstaking attention to detail. And now, as we place the final period on this chapter of the story, we are reminded of what we set out to achieve. Not just a book. Not just a series. But a world. To those who traveled with us, thank you. The journey has been extraordinary. And as we step back from the pages, we leave the rest in your hands. May you find as much joy in reading this epic as we found in building it. The past has been written, but the future, like ley lines themselves, is a force waiting to be shaped. Let us tread carefully, but boldly, as we step into what comes next. The author